All right? Okay, welcome to Planning and Land Use Management Committee. It's Tuesday, March 20th. I've been joined by the Honorable Council Members of Sylvia Starr and Mitch Illander. We have a few items today, and we'll thank Director LeGrand for being here. And I do know you're on the agenda as well, sir. I want to ask you, would you want to go first, or can you sit through this with us? It's up to you.
I'd be happy to wait with you.
Okay. Okay. So, are you ready to speak now, or did you want to wait? Okay, please. Why don't you go ahead and give us your report?
Yes, we'll be brief. Michael Graham for the record, Director of Planning. We've been very busy in the Planning Department working on many exciting things, one of which is the mobility element for the City of Los Angeles, which is an element of our transportation element, and a general plan that actually guides the city's infrastructure and ideas around mobility, everything from bike lanes to our transit routes, as well as our freeways and highways and local streets and collector streets. So we've been having a very good outreach process with that, utilizing a lot of online technology to try and reach people, as well as some public workshops. We've also had a number of successful workshops on the USC master plan that took place this past week that were very well attended, and we had a very good turnout at those meetings. We provided translation services and also had the ability to take testimony on a case that will be before you in the next coming months. In addition, the department is continuing to work on development reform and a number of efforts under the mayor's purview. We're currently working on proposals for writing the new zoning code, and we'll be presenting that back to the Plum Committee very shortly, and we're really excited to see that move forward. Our code study staff, who's before you today, has been very busy updating a number of ordinances, and we're happy to see the council adopt the core findings ordinance this morning. We think it's a really good way to make our process and procedures more understandable from the community and from the applicants, so they understand the types of questions we ask of projects as they come forward and see how they're consistent with the city's and the community's plans, as well as the zoning regulations. That will conclude my report, and I'm happy to be here to answer any questions.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions for Director LeGrand? Seeing none. I do know we have Councilman Alarcon in the room as well, and I want to ask him just to be, I know he has another appointment, but we do have one item. We have several police officers here, and Councilman Alarcon, what we could do is listen to your presentation if you like now, or do you want to do it when we start the item? I'll leave it up to you. You want to do it now? Okay. So, Roberta, for the record, can you announce the two items? I believe it's 1 and 2. Councilor Alarcon will essentially address us on those two items, and then we will hold that on the desk, and then we'll go to item 3 because we have several police officers here. We'll move that case, and then we'll go back to 1 and 2.
Item 1 and 2, council members, is the draft ordinance relative to community care and residential care facilities. Item 2 is the option to go into closed session, and Councilmember Alarcon will speak on item 1 right now.
Okay. Good afternoon, sir.
Council members, thank you so much for allowing me to go. I have to get to Personnel Committee at 3 o'clock. As you are well aware, this item came before council, and I voted against this measure because I believe there were many unresolved issues that were incorporated into the motion. I continue to believe that is the case, that notwithstanding some changes and actually some positive recommendations from planning, there still remains some fundamental problematic issues in my mind. Number one, the definition of family on the basis of a singular lease agreement, I think, is troubling. The primary purpose of this ordinance was originally to seek to remedy situations where communities were disturbed by facilities that were disrupting their communities with bad behavior, essentially. in those cases, all those groups would have to do is sign everybody up under a singular lease agreement, and they would be completely exempt from this ordinance. So that is the fundamental problem that was targeted, and yet we haven't solved it at all because we've given a complete out to those homes that operate badly. Conversely, those that operate very well are strapped with additional burdens that they otherwise would not be strapped with. So, for example, a home that is transitioning people who are suffering from alcohol addiction will have to sign an individual lease for every person, or they would be subject to a variance process. And if they do the individual lease, they lose the control of their tenants by virtue of the fact that they are not just there to provide housing, they're not just there as landlords, they are there as caregivers. They are responsible to get these people transitioned off of their addiction into a workable situation in our community. And without that control, by virtue of having to have a single lease agreement or having individual lease agreements with everyone. In other words, having a single lease agreement with each individual gives them the ability to control the situation individually. With one lease agreement, it makes it incredibly difficult for them to operate. We have testimony from numerous key public officials in the social service field that I think speak volumes for why this measure is not ready for prime time. But I think it's fundamentally based on this notion that we can pass an ordinance on the basis of land use when in fact it has tremendous social implications in our community. And we have not considered the fair housing issues fully with regard to its negative impact on the disabled community. So let me read some testimony from, for example, Dr. Jonathan Fielding of the Public Health Department. He runs the county's Public Health Department, states, "The proposed ordinance as presently written presents a number of threats to the health and well-being of our community's residents and places enormous barriers to establishing and maintaining affordable housing for low-income persons in the city of Los Angeles. If adopted, a potential unintended consequence may increase numbers of homeless individuals and families." In other words, if these people are being treated, taken care of, housed in local communities, where are they going to go if these facilities shut down, if not in those communities that don't want them to be wandering the streets? Dr. Marvin Southard of the Mental Health states, "The proposed ordinance will dramatically affect the department's ability to achieve its vision of partnering with communities to create hope, wellness, and recovery, and will significantly reduce the number of housing options available." Dr. Southard further states that new definition of family conflicts with Mental Health Services Act housing program, which provides permanent supportive housing options for homeless clients, which is sort of, technical speak for we may be in violation of discriminatory laws. And so in doing so, we could in fact jeopardize federal funding that we get to provide housing for people that have special needs. So this is very troubling. I understand the department is recommending that we eliminate the issues with regard to probation and parole. If the committee supports that, I certainly support that because it would place an incredible burden to apartment owners throughout the city who have no idea which of their clients are on probation or parole and would have to, and then if they discovered that some of their people were on probation or parole, they would have to do a conditional use permit, and we simply don't even have the resources to process all of those in a timely fashion, and that would be that would cause incredible problems throughout our community. I think fundamentally the question is whether or not we are solving the real problem. The real problem is where there are a few programs that are not managing. In fact, I hasten to call them programs. They're people just ripping off people who are in positions of transition out of drug addiction or something else, and they establish themselves as a program, but in fact, they don't care, they don't manage their facilities properly, they cause problems in the community. Those people, if they don't care about the way they are acting in the community, why would they care about putting them all on a single lease and not caring about whether or not they would, under a single lease, they could continue to operate as they're operating now. So we're not solving the problem that was intended, and I believe we're putting the city under incredible jeopardy with regard to federal funding, which could be jeopardized by actions that could be interpreted by the federal government to be discriminatory. Whether we're talking about housing dollars or whether we're talking about mental health related and health related programs that the city now prospers from, all of those would be in jeopardy. Now, I'm not opposed to us stopping bad operators from operating. I absolutely support that, and in fact have responded when that occurs in my district. But to throw the baby out with the bathwater is not the way to go. What would occur here is many good operators would be forced into non-existence, and in doing so, we would have to deal family to family, neighbor to neighbor, neighborhood to neighborhood with the conditions of alcoholism and drug abuse in our neighborhoods. I don't think that is a formula for success. I think it's a formula for continued deterioration of our city. So I would ask you not to support this measure in its current form, and I will continue to work with Mr. Englander and the committee to try and find a better solution than to put these businesses and these service providers in jeopardy.
Councilor Arcon, that does beg the question. First, I want to thank you. I know we all have had about 5.5 hours of council meeting, and now we're going to go here, so I thank you for your stamina and focus here. And also the fact that we did meet before, both Councilor Englander and yourself in my office, to talk about where we can take this and how we can look at this issue. Since then, I understand there has been some language that was crafted, and I don't know if you had the opportunity to see that in its draft form. Have you had that opportunity since that meeting?
I saw that there was some language that spoke about community benefits, and while I think it's a softer approach, it effectuates the same result in terms of the burden that will be placed on good operators. And I don't know that it's the best way to go. I have not had time to vet it thoroughly.
Okay. So that being said, it's I would hope, and I believe everyone's listening to what you're saying, but if there's a way you can come up with language that helps us get to this place. It's been in committee several months now. It's been through commission. It's been through a lot of processes, and believe me, I'm getting my fair share of letters of why isn't this moving forward. My intent is to move this forward, but I would love to do it in a manner that helps us drill down to language that if there's other verbiage you think we should consider, I would heartily welcome that between now and before it gets to council, so that way we could get to this some points of conclusion, because you're right, we need to respond to the issue and the problem and be cognizant of those consequences as well.
Well, I would answer your question like this. A bad idea is a bad idea no matter how long it takes. And I don't think the consequences of this measure could be dramatic on the city of Los Angeles, not only in terms of funding that could be in jeopardy, but in terms of the consequences in our community could be far more devastating than the problem that we're trying to solve. And so So I don't see the urgency to move something forward that isn't ready for prime time. I continue to commit to work with you to improve it, but this measure is not ready and will have devastating effects on all of our communities because these facilities are throughout the city of Los Angeles.
Okay.
And that is my fear.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Councilman. Any questions from my colleague? Any questions? No, thank you. And we're 10 minutes late to your committee, Councilmember. All right, so that takes care of Councilmember Alcons, and I'm glad he was able to make a statement. So we'll put items 1 and 2 on the table, and we'll move to item 3, Roberto.
Yes, council members, item 3 is an appeal.
Before I go, Roberto, let me just announce to the folks that the reason why we do this, we have police officers here, and our intent is to move them out from this place and out in the street and doing their job, so that's why we're going to jump ahead to item 3. So go ahead, Roberto, I'm sorry.
Sure. Item 3 is an appeal, council members, by Milkant Inc. and Ankur Patel. They're appealing the decision of the Associate Zoning Administrator, which found the Pine Tree Motel to constitute a public nuisance in Council District 8.
Okay, please, give us your name.
Good afternoon, Sue Cheng, the City Planning Department. First of all, I just want to thank the committee to take this case first because I think our LAPD officers will be really thankful to save their time. This application is a nuisance abatement application which was initiated by the City of Los Angeles in order to mitigate nuisance activities that occurred on and around this subject location. This property is improved with a motel, which is known as a Pine Tree Motel. This was first built in 1984 and has been under the same ownership since then. The same property owner also owns another motel adjacent to this motel. I believe that's situated on the north side of this subject site. The motel name is Denmark Motor Inn. These two motels have been a magnet for assorted criminal activity over a period of years, creating a public nuisance both inside the guest rooms as well as on the perimeter of the building, in the parking lot area, and along the Western Avenue corridor. The Community Coalition submitted a petition signed by almost 120 signatures in support of revocation of this use at this location. And the LAPD officers, police department received almost 36 calls for service for a 3-year time period. And also residents testified that they do not feel safe walking on and around this subject property because they don't feel safe. There were loitering guests in front of this motel and on the adjacent streets. In order to mitigate the nuisance activities, the zoning administrator imposed 32 operating conditions in January this year. These operating conditions imposed are almost similar to the conditions which were imposed for Denmark Motel. I believe that operating conditions were imposed for that motel in 2008, and the city had plan approval application to review the applicant's, the property owner's condition compliance twice. Most recent one was just a couple of weeks ago. We do not have a determination on that case. In my opinion, these imposed operating conditions are very onerous and nothing more than just a best management practice. As a good, responsible business operator, they should have done this practice without even being imposed this kind of operating conditions. And one of those conditions, the condition compliance review, is required within a year, at which time the public will be also invited to provide a testimony for the operation of the motel after the effective date of this determination. Also, I believe Council Office 8 submitted a letter in support of the revocation or the imposed operating conditions. And the staff recommending the committee asking to add one more sentence at the end of condition number 32. Condition number 32 requires a recordation of these imposed conditions on the property. And the one sentence shall read, if the property owner does not comply with this condition, the city will record the required covenant and agreement. That will conclude my presentation, and officers will give you more details about what's going on this property. And if you have any questions, I'll be available.
Thank you very
Thank
much. Any questions for the staff? Seeing none. Let's ask Sergeant Brent McGuire, and I believe we have Officer Gerald A. Woodley. If I pronounced that correctly, I apologize. And Officer Michael. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. My name is Gerald Woodyard. I'm the commanding officer at Southwest area, and I'm going to be speaking on behalf not only of the department, but more importantly, the community. Just to give you a little historical background about Western Corridor. The Western Corridor has a tradition, and I say tradition in a bad sense, that we have a lot of prostitution along the Western Corridor. And it's similar to the Figueroa Corridor. And as a commanding officer, I've worked vice. And what's disturbing to me, it's not the prostitution itself, because it's been there for a while, but the age of the prostitutes. We're seeing girls in the ages of 14, 15, 16 years old. And the Pine Tree Motel, in my opinion, plays a role in that. And so some of the conditions that we've placed on them hopefully will help us improve the Western Corridor in terms of reducing the amount of prostitution along that corridor. And I'll let Brent McGuire, as well as some other members from Detective Bureau, talk to you in specifics as far as some of the traditional problems we had there.
That's Commander, correct?
What's that?
Commander?
I'm the new commanding officer there at Southwest Division, sir.
Commanding officer. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you,
very
sir.
much.
Just give us your name and title, please.
Yes, sir. I'm Sergeant Brent McGuire. I'm the officer in charge of the Southwest Vice Unit. Really? Just to basically follow up on what my lieutenant, pending his promotion to captain, was saying. The concern for us is along the Western Corridor is the historical prostitution problem along there. Because of that, we've instituted something called the Western Corridor Project, where we've devoted many resources to cut down on the prostitution along that corridor. It's a partnership with the community and the city attorney's office. Just to give you some perspective, as prostitution, unlike other crimes, it doesn't really get reported, so our best indicator of the problem is our arrest statistics. So along Western, from 2011, our arrests along that corridor went up 39% over 2010. So to give you some perspective, that was 284 arrests we made just along that corridor. So almost 24 female and male people doing prostitution a month. So far in 2012, our arrests are up 163%. Specifically to the area surrounding the Pine Tree Motel, our arrests are up 25%. That just gives you a perspective of what the problem is, and obviously I think you can see the amount of resources that the police have had to devote to that area. One of our issues concerning the Western Corridor is the amount of cheap motels along the area. A lot of the Johns call them no-tels, is their nickname for them. Basically, in reference to that these motels allow them to use their establishments as a place to further their prostitution activities without informing the police.
The observations you're making are pertain to this particular address, correct?
That's just kind of more along the general corridor right there. I have specifically to the Pine Tree Motel. Like I was saying, we've made 25% more arrests in that specific area for prostitutes. A lot of times it's difficult to tell which motels they're frequenting. A lot of times my officers will pick up the prostitute and they'll say, hey, I got a motel right down the street. But obviously sometimes it's hard to get them to specify which one, especially with, like she said, the two motels that are adjacent to each other, the Danmar and the Pine Tree. Specifically, I can tell you that we've been, our our attention's been focused on the Pine Tree Motel going back to 1994. 94 it was cited for running a disorderly house, basically for knowingly renting a room to a prostitute. Going forward to 2001, 2002, again, they were cited for having an improper motel register, and then again, citing to knowingly renting a room to a known prostitute. I have several arrest reports for prostitutes we've rented in the area where they've directed us to the Pine Tree Motel. And then more specifically, I think Detective Dickus can give you some more information.
Please, thank you, officer. Thank you for your hard work. Just please give us your name and title for the record.
Good afternoon. Police Officer Michael Dickus. I work Detective Support and Vice Division. I'm currently handling nuisance abatements in South Bureau, which encompasses this particular location. I'm going to reiterate a few things that Ms. Chang has talked about, as well as the commanding officer and the sergeant. This location actually had 42 calls for service in the 2-year period and 14 arrests in that same period related to the actual property. Those arrests included narcotics and arrests of parolees at large, robbery, etc. Like Ms. Chan had spoke before, nothing in this conditional use permit is egregious or is anything out of the ordinary that the applicant should already be doing at his motel. The only thing I think that the operator would probably appeal or oppose would be dealing with number 17, which is the roving security. Normally, I've been handling nuisance abatements for almost a decade now. We ask that particular property owners have on-site security, which is very expensive, as you guys know. But here they're asking for a roving security, which they're already doing at the location next door. So I don't think that anything out of the ordinary of these conditions would be in play. I've met with this property owner numerous times in the last 2 years since I've had this case. They have made some changes there. They've painted the location, and I can see that they are moving forward. But if we don't put something in place that mandates that they do that, they could go back to the original operations that they had in the past. To me, as a community-based police officer, we have to think of the community first. There are probably community members here that will testify the opposition of this, that will say that this location does need these conditions. And we don't want the operator to say, hey, look, I've painted this place and maybe I've changed the standard of practice for the time being. We need something that's substantiated time frame, and that's why we ask for these conditions. Like the sergeant had said, my partner and I have created the Figueroa and Western Corridor Project, which we're working closely with Council Districts 8 and 9, that also encompasses this area. And we want to know, I mean, what we're asking is the dedication of officers in this particular area the reduction, cause for the reduction of crime, or is it the actual operator? We need to know that and for seeing if these conditions are in place or not. Lastly, I'd like to just say that, based on my training experience, that I think these conditions should be in effect as listed by Ms. Chang. If there is a different review time that the applicant may want, that would be something that I would be in support of. But other than that, I think due to the calls of service, the arrest records here, I think that this location is worthy of that. Lastly, that I'd like to say is that, as Ms. Chan said, the applicant is involved in another proceeding regarding the Danmar at 3811, which is the property adjacent. He'll most likely be appealing his conditions to that location as well in weeks coming. So my testimony here will be very similar to the testimony at that point in time. So the last question that I would ask is, if the police department redirected our resources elsewhere, will the criminal activity increase in and around this particular motel? A CUP in place for a given amount of time ensures that the operator will be responsible for his property and assist us in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Officer Dickus. Any questions for Officer? Seeing none. We do have representing, as the state attorney has called, the appellant, Mr. Richard Gibson. Please come on up and identify yourself.
Thank you. I'm the attorney for the appellant.
For the appellant, and your name?
Richard Gibson.
Okay. Good afternoon,
I have
sir.
a written statement that I'd like to submit as well, if I
You can submit the statement, yes.
Okay. I will be brief. There's basically two things I want to stress.
Can you speak into the microphone?
Excuse me. First off, the testimony we have been getting is saying the entire area has problems. We freely agree to that. The area does have problems. What we're not hearing is testimony that this particular location is in any way causing the problem. In fact, we are not. This is a well-run motel. The owner of the motel is also here. We have already been complying with everything the city wants us to do. And let me just put it this way. The fact that the area has problems is causing problems for the motel. The motel is not causing problems for the area. The police are not able to point to anything in particular that this motel is doing or not doing, which is worsening the problem. They're just saying, look, the whole area is a bad area. You guys are in it, therefore we impose conditions. Now, that's not proper. They really need to point to particular things we're doing or not doing. And the city has also said, and I want to be very clear about this, that, well, gee, these are things that the operator ought to be doing anyway, so what's the big deal with imposing conditions? Now, the answer to that is we are doing these things anyway, but imposing the conditions has a direct economic harm to the owner. The conditions are recorded with the property. They're a matter of public record. It's commercial reality, and I know the police don't deal with business too much, but it's business reality. If you have conditions imposed against your motel, you can't sell the motel except for a much worse price. You can't get a loan against the motel except on much more onerous terms. My client would like to get a loan against the motel to raise funds to renovate the motel and to help the area. He can't do it with these conditions against it. And so what I'm basically saying is we're not antagonistic to the police. We respect what they're trying to do. We are working with them. But we ask that it be done not via something which hurts us economically.
Mr. Gibson, and I'm listening to you, but I need to point to the report on page 11 from the planning staff. You have, dating back to 2009, real specific arrests on very certain dates that occurred on site of this property. So I just want to make sure that we're clear that on the record here, and it actually starts in 2008, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 2009, 3, 2010, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But going through all the cases, these are on-site arrests at various times of day. So for you to say there's no specific attribution to any kind of impact and or activity is just doesn't bear out based on this report.
Well, I have to respectfully disagree. My client can obviously give you the facts better than I can. I wasn't there. What I understand is the case is these are arrests in front of the motel, sidewalk around it.
It says on site.
Well, again, I can't give direct testimony on that. My client can.
Okay.
I believe it's not on.
I just needed to respond to you on record, given what's in front of us.
I understand.
Okay. Anything else you'd like to add, Mr. Gibson?
I just like Mr. Encore Patel would like to speak briefly on this as well.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah, hi, my name is Encore Patel. I'll be really brief. I know you guys have a busy schedule. My family has run this business since 1984. We run a clean-cut business. We don't have no graffiti. We remove it. We don't rent to any prostitution. We're really strict. We have an on-site security guard. The only problem I have with these conditions is that it affects our value in our property, and we try to keep a clean-cut business. We're not here to run prostitution, or we don't want that business on our property either, because it lowers our value, it discourages our customers. So we're not here in that business. But these arrests that the police are saying is, we need to show proof that they're on site, because they sometimes say they're outside of our business, and they say on site. We're not coming from a unit number. It's not unit 20. It's not unit 16. It just says on site. On site could be on Western Avenue, on 38th Street. We can't control what people get arrested on front of our property because they're not our actual tenants. So that's why we need to actually see evidence that it happens it's our customers, it's our registration cards, because we don't have any proof. We've never even been warned that these customers have got tickets or we never ran them a room. We don't even know if they got busted or not, because police never informed us that they got arrested and they were coming from our unit. So that's the only problem I have, and we're always going to keep a security guard. We have surveillance cameras. We did this before the police even came to want to give us conditions. So I don't have a problem with running that business that way. I just don't want to have conditions on my property because it affects our loan process. It affects if I ever want to sell it down the long term, I got to tell the future buyer that, hey, this property has conditions, and that is going to mess up the value. So that's the only problem I have with the condition process.
Thank you, sir. And can you fill out one of these cards?
Sure.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, sir. We do have two other speakers. We have Pamela Wells and George Graham. Would like to come on up, please? Pamela Wells, are you still here? Would you like to speak? And George Graham.
Good afternoon, Councilman Reyes. I am a resident at Santos Plaza, and I am appalled to hear Mr. Gibson and also Mr. Patel telling you that the Pine Hotel is safe. It's constant drug running. Drugs people have drugs in backpacks that come from the Pine Hotel, to my apartment building, dropping off drugs to be sold within the building. I have never seen a security guard. Not ever. Not once. There are children coming up and down the street to go to school. There are people skateboarding, young people that are 14, 12, 11, 10, 9, all the way down to babies. Mothers are pushing their children to daycare, to school, or to the market. There's constant family ages that are very young that see this constantly. Now, as far as this place being safe, I doubt it very seriously. I have witnessed violence over and time again. Gunshots. I've witnessed guns. I've seen them. Okay? I just want to let you know that there is nothing good about the Pine Hotel, and something should be done about it. Somebody should close it down because it is a public nuisance, and it's very dangerous to have so many drugs that are running in and out of the building, and traffic is going in and out of the building 24 hours a day.
I just want to thank you for coming to City Hall and
this is what I've witnessed.
Thank you very much for taking the time and the courage to be able to speak up. Thank you very much. Our next speaker is George Graham. Good afternoon, sir.
Hello, committee. My name is George Graham. I'm with Community Coalition, and I've recently been contacting a few members and of the community that live in that area. And as the young lady just identified, some of the things that I've heard, or at least wise from the members that live in the area, were that there's constant drug activity, there's prostitution, there's constant police activity, internal and external. So these are the things that were passed on to me. A few members elected not to come due to the fact that they live in the area, but that's what they passed on to me, and I just wanted to share that with you. And I appreciate it. And I support the conditions, and as they should be reinstated, and make sure that they continue that way. Thank you.
And thank you, sir, for your time and your courage as well for being here. I appreciate that very much. We have one more card of Officer Moore.
Hello, thank you for hearing me. I'm here in support of Officer Dickus. What's really important or really relevant to his request for the conditions to remain is that I'm the officer in charge of the Community Problems Unit. Officer Dickus works for me in the for nuisance abatement. What's really our standard protocol prior to even presenting a case to zoning or asking the city attorney for intervention is we meet with the property owners and we ask them, and the business owners as well, and we give them suggested conditions to give them an opportunity prior to conditions being imposed. So based on that, for them to come and present themselves as hey, we can't sell the property, we are unable to, this creates an economic burden. They were forewarned, and we asked them prior to, as this clear and apparent, for this to happen, the police department has expended an extensive amount of resources to protect the community, and simply their non-responsiveness is what resulted in the conditions being there in the first place. Thank you.
Thank you, Officer. I know there's a lot of work put into this, and thank you for your diligence. That concludes public comment. I do want to make a statement for the record on behalf of Councilman Parks. He has submitted a letter that essentially is requesting that we deny the appeal and maintain the conditions that's been determined by the zoning administrator, and that his request via letter. Will that cause any questions, observations, or statements? Please, Councilman.
I just want to say to the owner that came up to the microphone earlier, I'm not asking you to come back up, but I wanted to make my own observation that we had 4 police officers take the time out of their busy schedule to testify here today. Only 4 of, I'm sure, the countless officers in the community who have spent many hours dealing with this issue. You said that you respectfully deny the allegations. There were over 36 calls of service from the police department. I think it's an insult to the people who showed up today to testify on another matter. I think it's an insult to the police department and the people of Los Angeles that you've taken this kind of attitude towards the local residents and has supported this type of corruption in the community. I don't think, quite frankly, from my perspective, that these even go far enough. But these are the conditions that are being suggested, so I'll go along with it. But I think that we ought to rethink the fact that these officers also met with you prior to this to talk about the conditions, and we've got my full support behind what's being suggested, but like I said, I don't think it goes far enough. If I had the authority, I'd shut you down completely. Thank you.
Councilor Rizzo?
Thank you. I just want to thank our officers for not only doing out the work they need to do in our streets, but also working with our planning and the city attorney to come up with some solutions that can safeguard the local community. So I move that we deny the appeal and uphold the zoning administrator's determination.
I'll support that action. And I just want to emphasize that the conditions here is on one site. And yes, we did hear that there are other problems in the area. Well, it doesn't change until we start changing each parcel, each property, one by one. So it is very important to have the type of participation we've had from our officers, from the community. Again, I want to thank the community members that came here, took courage. Not many people are here, and you took the time to wait and make your statement on behalf of all the parents and kids. I want to thank you for that. So that being said, it's unanimous. We will deny the appeal and support the conditions as proposed by Councilor Rizar and seconded by the committee, and that'll be the action of this committee. So thank you very much. And officers, we're going to keep it here any longer than we have to. Thank you. Okay, Roberto, let's jump to items 1 and 2.
Yes, council members, that takes us back to the draft city planning department and city attorney ordinance relative to community care and residential care facilities. Item 2 is the option to go into closed session.
Okay, can we have the staff come on up and give us their presentation? I think we have housing here as well.
Yes, housing and the city attorney's office are here.
Okay, great. So make sure we get the full picture.
And
Okay, good afternoon.
Department of Disability.
Department of Disability is here as well. And Building and Safety.
Right.
Please proceed. Give us your name and position, please.
Good afternoon. Tom Rothman from the Planning Department staff. I'm here to present the community care ordinance. I wanted to briefly recapitulate what the ordinance had said originally, go over some issues that we've heard over the past 3 or 4 public hearings, and then move on to our supplemental staff report that was distributed on March 8th of this year. So just to be very brief, the ordinance as proposed and as drafted by the city attorney aims to address two main issues. One issue is to legalize and to incentivize housing according to the Community Care Facilities Act of 1973. It allows licensed facilities, licensed community care facilities of 6 and under anywhere in the city. That allows single-family homes. It also permits the larger licensed community care facilities of 7 and more in all residential, agricultural, and commercial zones, as long as they meet several performance standards. That's how we've sort of addressed the licensed facilities. The other portion of this ordinance seeks to reinforce our existing ban on boarding homes in our single-family neighborhoods. So since the 70s, boarding houses are not allowed in single-family neighborhoods. However, over the past few years, we've heard of a series of issues pertaining to different types of group homes that are proliferating in single-family neighborhoods that also meet our definition of a family. So what we've had to do is we've had to make definition changes. We're proposing definition changes to family, to single housekeeping unit, and to a boarding house. Our current definition of a family and single housekeeping unit, which are on the books today, are incredibly broad, and virtually any group of people living in a house can meet that definition. So what we proposed is to change our definition of a family and a single housekeeping unit to state that people sharing a house cannot live under more than one lease. We've also changed our definition of a boarding house, or proposed to change the definition of a boarding house to be a series of guest rooms that are rented out under 2 or more leases, thereby creating a very bright line between what is a single housekeeping unit and what is allowed in the single-family zone, and what is a boarding house and what is permitted in the multifamily and commercial zones. That being said, we heard a series of issues that we outlined in our report of March 8th. I'll briefly go over them. One was the definition of a single housekeeping unit. That brought up several issues. The number of allowable leases in a single-family dwelling. How we've decided to regulate the licensed facilities for 7 and more. And our definition of a parolee and a probationer. So what we did in our supplemental report of March 8th is offer the council some options to perhaps modify the ordinance accordingly. And what we did was we did a little profile of how other cities in Southern California and throughout the state classify boarding houses and the number of leases they allow on them. They range from 2 to 5 different leases. Currently ours says 2. Our proposal says 2. We've also come up with a number of what we've called markers that help define how a single housekeeping unit can operate. And we've also listed which cities those are used in. So on the last page, we've proposed some possible changes. If you might want to increase the number of leases allowable in a boarding house, right now it's 2. That number can change according to what other cities in Southern California do. And our definition of a single housekeeping unit, we did offer the option here of removing the 1 lease option and just going significantly by these markers, and that the members of a single housekeeping unit act together as a family and are chosen by the members as opposed to a third party, a landlord, or a property owner. And that, in a nutshell, is the ordinance, but I'm here to answer any questions before we take public testimony. And Amy Brothers is here to answer any other questions.
Well, let's do this. It's we have other departments who are involved in not only the implementation, but how it gets impacted as a policy. Let's hear from them. And then we'll open up to questions from my colleagues, or we can hear public comments, but we'll wait till we get there. The next department I'd like to see here is the Housing Department.
Good afternoon, council members. Rushmore Cervantes with the Housing Department. I'm joined by Claudia Monterosa. The Housing Department is charged, obviously, with providing affordable housing and protecting fair housing. The ordinance before you now does raise some problems with fair housing as a whole, both as it relates to the single lease or the elimination of those leases. The single lease provision is problematic for the protected classes in particular. Those are the classifications that typically utilize single-family residences in 2 or 3 or 4 in a particular home. One lease will not necessarily address the issue. It's problematic. As it relates to eliminating the number of leases and then defining the household by the individuals, that's problematic as well from the standpoint that the housing department provides services through the HOPWA program as well as through NSP program, whereby we have individuals that are in single-family homes that is provided through federal funds by the City of Los Angeles to organizations to provide those services. The city's responsible for providing an analysis of impediments as accompanies the consolidated plan for federal funds. This analysis of impediments is required in order to receive those funds. And this analysis is a self-analysis to look at if there's any impediments to fair housing. We're actually undergoing this analysis right now that's due in June. We've shared the various versions of the draft ordinance to the consultant, and there are some problems, as I've just alluded to, that could be problematic that would be sent to HUD. Now, I don't stand here before you and say that if HUD sees the analysis of impediments and sees that there's some problems in this area, that they're going to withhold funds, both the CDBG and home dollars, but that is the charge of the city to ensure that we are removing all impediments as it relates to fair housing.
So, in essence, not until June will you get feedback as to how this ordinance would be responded to by the federal government given the Fair Housing Policy Act.
Well, that is correct. I mean, they would review this and then come up with their own determination. And this is similar determination that's been rendered by other law firms and organizations that see this as problematic. Obviously, there's different sides to the argument here, and as the House Department, we just want to bring to the attention of the Council members that this could be problematic, and we don't know ultimately if this is going to result in a reduction or elimination of funding by virtue of having this ordinance go forward, but we just want to bring it to the attention that we do have services right now in the House Department that, by virtue of this going forward as is, would render those obsolete.
Okay, thank you. Anything else you'd like to add? Please. Folks, believe me, we really want to clap, and sometimes we want to criticize, but the less we do that, the quicker we get out. And there's a lot of traffic out there, too. So, that being said, we have Laza here as well. I understand they wanted to speak, and please tell us what the acronym means, your name and position.
Planning on doing it. Thank you, Chairman Reyes and committee members. I'm Michael Arnold. I'm the Executive Director of the Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority. We're the joint city-county entity charged with designing, operating, and funding homeless and related social services to end homelessness. I'm here today to urge you to reconsider the proposed changes before you. We are completely aligned in believing that everyone has the right to a peace and quiet enjoyment of their home and their neighborhoods. That said, our primary concern with the proposed changes in the ordinance is that it will increase homelessness in Los Angeles while not addressing the nuisance and bad behavior. Los Angeles has the largest homeless population in the nation, and it has a critical shortage of affordable housing. This ordinance will make one of the most effective housing retention options for low-income individuals, veterans, and families illegal. Shared housing in R1 and R2 zoned areas. For example, an elderly woman who rents her home and provides housing for a student and for driving her to her medical appointments or doing chores would be considered operating a boarding room house and not permitted in R1 and R2 zones. Any form of shared housing except single-family units would be prohibited from doing so in these zones. Based on the American Community Survey, in Los Angeles City alone, almost 50,000 low-income households use shared housing to maintain a roof over their head. The ordinance as currently written eliminates federal and state housing support in shared housing arrangements in R1 and R2 zones as well. Section 8, Shelter Plus Care, Mental Health Services Act, and Veterans Affairs Supportive Housing Assistance Programs require each recipient receiving homeless assistance to have their own lease. For many, this is the only way they can afford stable housing and is part of their treatment program. Shared housing is one of the least expensive housing models available to end homelessness, and this ordinance severely restricts its use in the city. In addition, the ordinance will displace mentally and physically disabled residents currently in R1 and R2 zone shared housing and it will stop the development of critically needed shared housing programs for homeless veterans. The ordinance as currently proposed will reduce access to badly needed alcohol and drug abuse programs. Occupancy restrictions, restricting the number of occupant residents in bedrooms to 2 in alcohol and drug abuse facilities, regardless of room size, will result in the loss of these valuable beds in the city at a time when recovery programs are desperately needed. As mentioned with other folks, this ordinance may jeopardize significant HUD funding to Los Angeles City. The city has an affirmative duty to develop policies and programs that further fair housing. We believe this ordinance is contrary to this requirement and places McKinney-Vento Homeless Assistance Programs, the Veteran Affairs Supportive Housing Program, Section 8 Shelter Plus Care Housing Assistance Programs, Home Dollars, Housing for People with AIDS, and Community Development Block Grant funding at risk. The McKinney-Vento program alone brings in over $60 million a year for the city from HUD to address homelessness. The ordinance will likely result in the city incurring protracted legal fees in its defense at a time in which these funds are needed to maintain vital community programs and services. The community care facilities ordinance as proposed will not solve nuisance neighbors, but it will increase homelessness. We cannot add additional barriers to housing for our most vulnerable city residents, our homeless men, women, and children, and still end homelessness. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your work, sir. Again, please, any questions no questions? I can see none. We also have with us, I believe, the Building and Safety Department. Building and Safety, like to come to the microphone? No? Okay. Sir? Department of Disability, come on up. Department of Disability? Oh, Building and Safety. Building and Safety come, then Department of Disability. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Frank Bush, the Assistant Chief of the Code Enforcement Bureau. We were just, looking forward to working with the City Attorney and the Planning Department on this, working out issues of enforcement. We've been in discussion with them on a regular basis, and we'll be prepared to deal with the challenges on a case-by-case basis as it is put forward.
Thank you, sir. I just thought it was important to put that on the record, so I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay. Department of Disability?
I'm Tony Abraham, Department on Disability. Our concern is very much of that of the Housing Department. Our concern is that the new ordinance that we're drafting right now and defining a single housekeeping unit based upon the number of leasing, it can be deemed as being very restrictive to people with disability, because one of the ways that housing is allowed for them is, in fact, by having group leases and staying in the very same unit. And the very fact that we have the Community Facility Act under the Health and Safety Code at this time, that is units for 6 and less people. One of our concerns that we would communicate is that what happens when there's 7 and more, the way the disability community has accessible housing is the fact that they can have leases grouped together under one single household. And by having, again, the single housekeeping unit, that number of leases simply is restricting the housing. And our concern is that it by spirit is opposed to the Fair Employment and Housing Act, as well as the federal fair housing amendments as well.
Thank you, sir. A question? Go ahead.
The issue you raised, them having the ability to raise, now you're referring just to multiple housing units or to single?
No, just single, since this is
you're referring to the single family units.
Exactly.
Okay, any other questions? Seeing none. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your testimony. Now, I believe the city attorney wanted to have a discussion in closed session unless they want to speak and address the body. Okay, city attorney, would like to make a statement now, or do we wait for closed session? We'll wait for closed session, then we'll have, do you want to make a statement?
Unless anyone has, I've said previously in our prep session that I'm only going to be able to speak specifically to discrete legal issues that have been raised as threats to the city about litigation in the future. So if anyone on the committee has any questions that are not discrete legal issues, for me, those should be presented in open session.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Seeing none? Okay, all right. And Hakla, come on up. And just, again, just tell us what Hakla means and your title.
Good afternoon. I'm Peter Lynn. I'm the Director of Section 8 for the City Housing Authority of the City of Los Angeles. And it's my job to operate the 50,000 rental assistance units that we have under the Section 8 program. I'm here to express the concern that the agency passed a resolution of regarding this ordinance. It focused on two areas. One is the parolee probationary definition, which I understand is being severed. But the investment that the Housing Authority has made in permanent supportive housing of hundreds of millions of dollars and 1,500 project-based vouchers is an enormous concern for us that would be jeopardized by adding that element. Many of the people under that program would fall under that definition. The second area that's of direct concern to us is the single lease requirement. Under the Section 8 program, assisted families have the economic purchasing power to lease their own units, so by and large that's what they do. A minority of the assisted families, all of them disabled, request the ability to lease in a shared housing situation. More than half of those are leased currently in single-family dwellings or in R1 units around the city, and that's the population that we're most concerned about the impact on. We feel that this single lease provision would significantly impact a protected class, and therefore we're expressing our opposition to it. In general, the impact is going to fall on unassisted families, as Mike said, tens of thousands of regular poor. The assisted families, by and large, are going to escape the impact of this because they're leasing their own units. However, those families on whom the burden falls are entirely disabled. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Again, thank you for your hard work. So any other departments here that would like to make a statement? I want to make sure I don't leave you out. Okay, I think we covered everyone. Ma'am?
I'm Renee Turner with LA County Department of Mental Health.
Thank you, ma'am.
I'm here today to talk about the impact of this ordinance on individuals living with a psychiatric disability. Currently, we do have approximately 7% of our clients who are enrolled in full-service partnership programs currently live in congregate living situations like the ones that are being considered today. And if this ordinance is passed, that would, really impact their ability to continue living in the situations where they currently are. The main issue here for the department is affordability, is that our clients tend to have limited income, surviving on SSI, and because they can live together in a family environment, they are then able to afford to live in a decent and affordable living situation. In addition, a part of our MHSA, and that's Mental Health Services Act, if you're familiar with Prop 63, funds two MHSA housing programs. One is our MHSA housing program and our housing trust fund. And these programs allow for individuals to live in a group setting with individual leases. So if this ordinance is passed, this would prevent these programs, and the department would be forced to redesign or restructure these programs in order to accommodate this change. And also, we are working with the AB 109 individuals, and so this would severely impact our ability to work with them and to help them reconnect in the community.
Can you tell me what AB 109 means and which population you're addressing?
AB 109 is the legislation that was recently passed where individuals are leaving state prison and coming back to the county. And some of those individuals have mental health diagnoses, and therefore the Department of Mental Health works with those individuals once they come back into the community. And so part of working with them is also helping house them. And so this ordinance would impact their ability to reintegrate back into the community.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your hard work. Any questions from my colleagues? Seeing none, thank you very much for taking the time. Okay. Okay, so I believe that covers all the departments that are present here. So let's dig into the piles that are in front of me here. Now, just for the sake of efficiency, I know many of you have written very eloquent letters. We're going to give you 1 minute. So if you can get to the point of your letter as quick as possible, that would help. Give us your name, your address. If the person before you has said what you wanted to say, it's okay to say, I agree with the previous speaker, and give us anything new and or different. That way we can move this hearing along. So that being said, I'm going to go, I have 2 stacks here, support and oppose. So I'm going to go back and forth to kind of balance this out and hopefully get to the bottom. All right, here we go. And if I call your name, it's okay to line up. And with the gentleman here, would you like to come on up and speak? If we can assist him with the microphone, Sergeant? Officer, can we assist him with the microphone? Can you take the microphone to him? Officer, can you take the microphone to him?
Take it to them.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, you first?
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Scott Barron. I'm Peer Self-Advocacy Coordinator with Disability Rights California. One of my main job duties is to provide rights-based training to individuals with developmental disabilities in the community. And I urge you to carefully consider this ordinance because many individuals with disabilities often live on fixed incomes. And one of my most popular trainings in the community is independent living. In this training, we often discuss different living situations, and one of these situations is a roommate situation, and they often express to me how important living with a roommate is, and not only for emotional support, but also financial support, and not only financially, but as far as emotional support. And I just urge you to carefully consider this ordinance because it would put a significant barrier in front of those individuals with developmental disabilities that are able to live independently. I strongly encourage you to support individuals with disabilities to live independently no matter what environment is available to them. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for taking the time. Okay. Sir, would you like to speak? No? Okay.
No, thank you.
He's okay. All right. So, we'll go with Maggie Funder, I believe. Then Patty Davis and Kathleen Daldon. Would you like to come on up? That's Maggie Funder, I believe. Hi, what's your name?
I'm Randy. I live in Northridge. It is the city's responsibility to provide a safe environment, and how they have failed to do so by allowing group homes with large numbers of parolees into our neighborhoods. Illegal problematic group homes are a widespread problem that affect every community between the Valley and San Pedro. It is by no means isolated. Devonshire Division, LAPD, said that they have 47 illegal group homes in their district. West Valley LAPD says they have 35 in their division. So many new ones are opening up that they cannot keep track or monitor them because the resources are strained due to budget cuts. And if the planning recommendations are passed, the city is simply risking the safety and security of not only my family, but of every resident in the city. There will be no way to control these illegal boarding houses. You can read all the reports you want, take all the surveys you want, but at the end of the day, after 7 years of sharing a wall with one of the largest group homes in the Valley, housing more than 50 residents in a 3-bedroom home, I'm outraged that it's taken 5 years for this to happen or to even get settled. It's ridiculous. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Can you fill out a card? Because I don't see your name on the cards. You need to fill out a card. We didn't get one. Okay. Okay, please come on up, give us your name.
Peggy Burgess. I was next door, so I had to run over here. Peggy Burgess, North Hills West. The March 8 planning, the department recommendations are absolutely unacceptable. This is just another concession to appease the opponents who created the very problems the CCFO is needed to prevent. The parolee probationer clause must not be removed. We all know there will never be a resolution at a later date. The special interest groups will prevail again, and corrupt operators will continue to house unlimited numbers of parolees and probationers under the guise of sober living homes. Crime in single-family neighborhoods will continue to increase at a direct proportion, just as it has for the last 5 years. It is only it's only the unscrupulous operators who oppose any attempt to regulate their facilities.
Thank you, ma'am.
Legitimate
Thank you very much.
license.
Thank you much. Next speaker. Come on up.
Kathy Deladani, and I'm representing the Tarzana Neighborhood Council. Since we urge your support of this ordinance, it's very important for our communities. We've been supporting this, the passage of a community care ordinance since 2008. Please pass this for our communities. Thank you.
Okay, last call for Maggie Founder. Maggie, if you're here. Okay, I know there are some other folks in the other room that are making their way up, so we'll be a little patient. If they come here, they can line up. Okay, let's hear from Terry Lance, Mary Harper, Alyssa Smith, Travis Filling, I think it's Vabier. Are you here? Yeah, if they're near the room, they're probably making their way over here. So I'll go over this name one more time. Terry Lance, Mary Harple, Elisa Smith, and Travis Fearing Weber, I believe. Good afternoon, ma'am. Your name?
Hi, I'm Elisa Smith. I'm a resident of Glassell Park, also a community organizer, but I'm here for personal reasons to share with you how a couple of years ago, I have 2 kids who are in college. I'm self-employed, and my income took a nosedive. And I told my kids, get ready, because I may have to sell my house. And they said, Mom, why don't you just rent out our rooms? So I did. And one of the girls that I took in was a graduate from a sober living program. She'd been in a home for 2 years, and she's been with me for a year. And I feel really blessed and lucky to have been able to give her this opportunity. The other girl moved from Baltimore, and her family was also really relieved to find that she'd found a place to live with me. So my issue was with some of the language in this ordinance, and because I'm wondering, am I running a boarding house or do I have housemates?
Oh, thank you, ma'am, and thank you for being an advocate as well for the community. Our next speaker is, come on up. We have Travis Fearing Weber, Terry Lance, and Mary Harple. Come on up if you heard your name.
I'm Terry Lance. I'm a client's right advocate for United Cerebral Palsy. UCP of Los Angeles County serves over 1,200 people with developmental disabilities every day. UCP is the single largest provider of affordable, accessible housing for people with developmental disabilities in California. There is already a critical shortage of housing, worsened by the recent elimination of redevelopment agencies and funding from the State Department of Housing and Community Development. This is not the time to pass a law that would make it harder for this population to obtain opportunities for affordable housing and to be able to sign a lease. It is not the time to decrease housing options for developmentally disabled and people of very low income in our community.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time. Mary Harper and Travis Freeman. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Hello, good afternoon. I'm representing the National Alliance on Mental Illness.
Please give us your name.
Mary Harpel.
Okay.
And I'd like to speak against the ordinance. It's against the Civil Rights Title VIII Act of 1968. It's against a number of, you have to have legal statistics. It can't be just conjecture. But I would like to also point out that the way it's drafted without disability advocates is based on conjecture, not legal statistics. And it's very important because I have bipolar disorder, and I have a BA and a master's, and I'm very, very useful. I do a lot with peers, my peers, and with my lived experience, I'm fully capable of being of help. One more thing, and there are hundreds like me in this county who are helped by the homes.
Thank you very much. Travis Freeman-Weber. Is Travis Freeman-Weber here? Okay. Rebecca Lobo, LOBL. Stephen, I believe it's Resnier. Rebecca Lobo, Stephen Resnier. Stephen Resnier. Monique Breyer. Rebecca Lobo, Stephen is Resnick. There you go. Resnick. And then we have Monique Breyer. Coming up. Did you already spoke? Coming up. If I called your name, come to the microphone. Give me your name, please.
Stephen Resnick. I'm sorry, I thought I was down the list a little further.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, council members and Chairman Reyes. Stephen Resnick, representing the Westwood Homeowners Association, and as some speakers have already gone before, we're in support of the city attorney's recommendation and the ordinance. We feel that if there's some specific issues, perhaps something can be worked out in some differences with the planning department, but we feel what this can do to single-family neighborhoods is extremely detrimental. As a personal note, I have a piece of property behind me, my home, of 6 adult elder care, and they cause me problems. The owners are not responsive to certain problems, and if they don't like something, they just pick up the phone and call building and safety, and I have to deal with it. We don't think this is right, and the city attorney's report should stand. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, come on up.
Good afternoon. My name is Monique Breyer. I'm a real estate broker. I live in Los Angeles. Do you need this up a bit more? Oh, thank you very much. Since everybody's throwing their degrees around, I also have a Master of Science degree in Public Health from UCLA, and I worked in healthcare research for about 20 years before I went into real estate. I'm in general in support of this ordinance, but I do believe that the notion of converting traditional single-family residential neighborhoods into large commercial facilities is a drastic form of social engineering that the city has permitted without considering its impact on homeowners. The city's made no effort to study the financial impact on neighboring property values or on the quiet enjoyment of these properties to which homeowners are legally entitled. I've heard lots and lots today about the rights of people who are protected groups, but property owners also have rights as well, and it is our property taxes that are funding the city and many of these programs. While I advocate these programs...
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Very much.
Okay. Rebecca Lobo.
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm Rebecca Lobel. I'm the president of the LA Coalition for Neighborhoods, a nonprofit group of LA residents that support the ordinance. Our membership includes LA residents from every council district. I have here a petition, a copy of which you've been given, in support of the ordinance with 559 signatures. 35 homeowners associations or neighborhood councils support the ordinance. These neighborhood councils are from every part of the city. They include San Pedro, Central Los Angeles, the West Side, and the Valley. The real question is, where is it appropriate for group homes and boarding homes? No one is advocating their eradication. Just where are they appropriately located in this city? Dorothy Parker once said that Los Angeles is 72 suburbs in search of a city. Though not entirely accurate, it speaks to the unique quality of Los Angeles. LA, like no other city, has many low-density zones throughout. As a policy-making body, if you decide that LA's unique qualities are worth saving, then you must support the ordinance and restore R1 and R2 zones for their original purpose.
Thank you very much. Okay. Our next group of speakers, we have Ken Christensen, Danny Joe, I believe it's Benjamin Nelson, and Jose Torres. They might be coming from the other room, so we'll just give them a little time. But we have with us Kim Christensen, if you're in this room. Kim Christensen, Danny Joe, Benjamin Nelson, Jose Torres. If they do show up, they'll line up, and I'll go with more names. It's Chancellor Almanzor. Chancellor Almanzor, are you here? Please come on up. Eva Casas Sarmiento, if you're here, please come on up. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Chancellor Al-Mansour. I'm a resident homeowner in the city of Los Angeles, and I oppose this ordinance. I'm also the executive director of the Housing Rights Center. We're the largest fair housing organization in the state, and we are contracted by the city of Los Angeles to implement and enforce its fair housing rules. I've read this. This is in violation of fair housing law. The biggest thing I want this committee to look at is, number one, the person from planning asserts that this would incentivize housing. I don't see how that's possible, and that needs to be questioned. And also, you should look at other cities, the city of Westchester in New York, for instance, which not only did it lose all of its funding, federal funding for housing from HUD, but it also had to pay back millions of dollars in penalties because the city did not look at an ordinance, did not say that it is an impediment to fair housing, and they actually signed the city charter and so forth saying that it did not have an ordinance that violates fair housing law. The city is my organization receives CDBG funds. There are many other organizations here that do as well, and other funds such as the McKinney Act. This will violate fair housing. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And folks, I know these are long hearings, but if you need to have a conversation, please take it outside. The acoustics in this room are not the greatest. So we can literally hear your conversations, and it's hard to hear the speaker. So we can just maybe tone down the clapping and the cheering. We can move this forward. I appreciate that very much. Is Eva Casas Sarmiento here? Eva Casas, come on up. Is Kim Christensen here? Okay. How about Danny Joe? Is Danny Joe here? Benjamin Nelson, are you here? All right, please come up to the microphone. And Jose Torres. Is Jose Torres here? All right, come on up. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon. My name is Eva Casas Sarmiento. I'm an attorney with Disability Rights of California. My clients are strictly people with developmental disabilities who get services from the regional centers. This ordinance would substantially limit housing options for people with disabilities. Many of my clients need to have separate leases to maintain their public benefits and to protect their independence. Many of my clients do not live with their families. They live independently, but they need someone to assist them in daily tasks. A separate lease would allow them to hire and fire their attendants without the risk of losing their housing. This way, one tenant can be evicted without the other one having to be evicted as well. Also, most of my clients cannot afford to live on their own and need to have a roommate in order to pay their fair share. Without a lease, Social Security often assumes that my clients are receiving help from their roommates. I have represented many clients who were having their benefits reduced because they were assumed to have help from their roommates. I urge you to vote no on this ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, come on up.
My name is Benjamin Nelson, representing BHS, Redgate Memorial, Long Beach, California. I'm an addict in recovery, searching for a second chance to rebuild my life. And I feel by having this taken away, it's going to harm me and my fellow recovery brothers and sisters. We all need an opportunity to change our lives, and the facilities are closed. Our lives will be in turmoil, and we are used to living a life of turmoil, but we're tired of living a life of turmoil, and we're here to change things. And like a friend of mine told me, this is a chance for me to rebuild my life, and I feel this is the best opportunity to voice my opinion and let you know. So, thank you,
sir. Thank you for taking the time.
My name is Jose Torres, and I'm also a representative of BHS.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear your name because all the clapping.
My name is Jose Torres.
Okay,
and I'm also a representative of BHS. And just like my brother Bren there, I'm a recovering addict. Currently trying to change my life. I'm 43 years old. I never knew nothing about recovery until it was passed along me this time. The first gentleman that spoke talking about house full of parolees and all that, where I'm at, there ain't nobody on parole. Everybody is serious about changing their lives. I'm currently registering in Long Beach City College to become a drug and alcohol counselor, and I'm really benefiting from these places. So to take away these programs is taking away a chance for us to make it in life. We had one chance, but that doesn't mean that we can't take another chance, another shot at life. So I really oppose this proposition.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. What up?
Greg Spiegel, Inner City Law Center. Proponents of the single lease provision say it's necessary to...
I'm sorry, your name again?
Greg Spiegel, Inner City Law Center.
Let's give him his 1 minute again.
Thank you. Proponents of the single lease provision say that it's necessary to get rid of nuisance group homes. However, the single lease requirement does nothing to target nuisances. Its only concern is whether there's more than one single lease in a family home. Proponents also say that the single lease requirement is needed to restrict commercially operated transient housing as illegal boarding houses. Yet when you look at the definition of boarding house, there's no mention of transients. Moreover, it makes no distinction between commercial and non-commercial housing. So if it's not about nuisance properties and not about commercial transient housing, what is it about? The unstated but unambiguous purpose is to eliminate sober living facilities in single-family areas. This purpose is unstated because if the ordinance targeted sober living facilities, as it did when originated, it would be invalidated in court for illegally targeting people with disabilities. So the ordinance was made to appear facially neutral, appearing to treat everyone the same. Well, it won't save the ordinance in court, and what it would do is eliminate thousands of affordable and successful homes for low-income families and veterans and people with disabilities. Instead of this twisted and warped single lease requirement, the city should send the city attorney back to the drawing board to draft an ordinance that appropriately targets nuisance homes.
Thank you so much. I know people are coming from other areas. Daniel Joe here? If not, Ken Christensen? Okay, we'll move on. David A. Green, Steve Wojcicki, Dave Bouvet, I believe. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Councilman. My name is David Green. I represent MANA, the Melody Acres Neighborhood Association in Councilman Zine's district. In particular, we have all suffered from a very unregulated process of boarding homes in our specific area. We are all half-acre lots, and they have been terribly abused by these people that come in looking only to make buck fast, and they don't care a thing about the community. So we end up having to support both through our taxes the people that are sponging off of the government and sponging off of us as taxpayers. At the same time, we have to pay for the police who have to fix the problems daily or weekly at the best, and it just is not appropriate for this council to continue to lag on putting something in place. You may have to change it later, but let's get something down, get something that will stop this unlimited, structured process against the boarding houses. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker, come on up. Give us your name.
Steve Warshawski, Northridge. I want to thank the council for letting me speak today. Very quick, humorous line, but maybe there's something behind it. Maybe we could turn that Pine Crest Hotel into housing for people that need large group housing. I'm strongly opposed to any proposed ordinance allowing large group facilities to operate in properties that were zoned for low-density residential use. No other city allows this. We support, obviously, the right for adequate housing for disabled people and other groups that require such housing, but allowing such high-density uses violates the essential zoning concept of separating residential and commercial uses. Also, according to the LA County tax assessor, a residential property in our neighborhood is worth a whopping 30% less due to the boarding house that recently moved into our neighborhood. That means less taxes for the rest of the community, including disabled, to fund their projects. This is just one example of we want the city, we approve the city attorney's report.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. My name is Dave Beauvais. I'm president of Granada Hills South Neighborhood Council, one of the 35 neighborhood councils that support this original draft from September of last year. It's become readily apparent in the almost 5 years that this ordinance has trended its way through various committees that the problem has become more severe, not less. We're now dealing with boarding homes that stack people 20, 30, 40 people at a time into a single family home. We've been told repeatedly there's a few bad apples. There's more than just a few bad apples. We have people who are unscrupulously using sober living homes as cover. A lot of them aren't even bothering to use them as cover anymore. They're simply squatting in homes and using them in boarding homes, renting to multiple people. That's the reason for the single-family lease requirement. It's essential to this ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have Jason Bryce. Jason Bryce. Teresa Carol Conley. Sarah Hessling. And Michael Ray. You'd like to come on up? Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Council. My name is Jason Bryce. I'm an addict and an alcoholic. By taking away the sober living homes, and I am a client of BHS for Redgate Recovery Memorial Center. By taking away these sober living homes, you're taking away my life. I'm a 20-year-old kid. I'm an adult, and if you take away all these sober living homes, you're taking away my life. I've been doing heroin since I was 13 years old. Doing marijuana since I was 6. If you take away everything, you take away my life, basically, I'm telling you. I don't really have much to say on it because I don't know the ordinance, but basically you're taking away my life if you do. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for taking time. Talsia Carol Conley, are you here? Sarah Hessling. Sarah Hessling. Michael Ray. Okay, we're hoping they're walking over from the other meeting room. Richard Fisk. It's Richard Fisk. Jim Bryan. Okay, I'm assuming there's a lot of people in the other room. Here we go. Come on up. Just come on up to the microphone. Come on down. If we called your name, come on down. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Please give us your name.
Michael Ray. I got clean and sober in a sober living in Van Nuys. It was well regulated, it was highly structured, and it was no problem to the community or the neighborhood. How dare we in Los Angeles take away the opportunity with a major addiction problem throughout the city, and let's put them all homeless. There are nuisance abatement laws in place for bad houses, and because of some NIMBY neighbors, they want to shut down everything. I oppose this opposition.
Thank you, sir. Come on up. Your name, please?
Hi, my name is Sarah Hessling. I am currently a resident of a sober living. I am a single mother with low income, and it's not just some boarding home. I there have found family structure, and I oppose this act. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. I'll be going through these names one more time. We have Jim Bryan. Is Jim Bryan here? Richard Fisk. Teresa Carol Conley. No, okay. Shayla Myers. Umbrain Beatty, I believe, or Beatty. B-H-A-T-T-I. That's Shayla Myers. And Umbrain Beatty, I believe. Okay. We'll hold on to these. Hopefully somebody walks through those doors. We have Nina Royale, Tracy Johangard. Coming up, sir, if I called your name, come on up. You can form a line. If I did call your name, just stand behind the speaker if I called your name. Come on up. Good afternoon, sir.
Hi, my name is Richard Fisk. I'm from Granada Hills. I strongly oppose the recommended amendments submitted by the Planning Department dated March the 8th, and urge you to support the City Attorney's original report and recommendations that were on the 13th of September of last year. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon. My name is Tracy Johangard from Northridge, the San Fernando Valley. I strongly support the report from September of 2011. There were, in the March report, the planning report, there were references made to removing the lease limitation altogether and using markers to redefine a single housekeeping unit, such as the functional equivalent of a traditional family or joint use of common areas. By removing this lease limitation, you absolutely, without a doubt, will open the door for more illegal group homes. This is a problem that we're having now in our neighborhood. When the officials tried to shut them down, 30 or more residents, 41 in my case, they all respond that we're family, this is my brother, my cousin, and we all use the same kitchen. Such subjective criteria as the markers proposed by this planning report defining a single housing unit are broad and ambiguous and will lead to lengthy, expensive debate and litigation in the future. Enforcement officials need something much more defining, such as a lease agreement. Please do not throw away the definition of the single housekeeping unit or boarding house that is defined by 2 or more leases. Thank you.
Next speaker. Good afternoon.
Nina Royal, Land Use Committee and Safety Chair of the Sunland Tujunga Neighborhood Council. Our state is releasing 20 to 40,000 prisoners, and they are coming to our neighborhoods and yours. A protective law must be written now. Public safety is our #1 priority, and it should be yours. You have had 5 years to study this issue. It is imperative that we have your protection because parolee and probation houses are cropping up everywhere without supervision. The police say that there are so many of them that they can't keep track of them. There's no present law that can be enforced to protect us or even former prisoners from being victims. A strong protective law must be enforced now. It cannot wait. We want you to follow the lead of cities such as Colton, Fontana, Orange, Murrieta, Riverside, and San Diego who regulate parole houses. And most important, we want you to utilize the recommendations made by the City Attorney's Office dated 9/11, year 2011. It is the only way to protect our neighborhoods and yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, come on up. Give us your name.
My name is Jim Bryan. I'm an elder resident of Tarzana. I'm a 30-year recovered alcoholic. I'm a veteran. And all of these proposals to limit the housing will only put people like me and my friends and thousands of other people on the street. That's all.
Thank you, sir. Come on up. If I called your name, and I know it takes time to get over here, please come on up.
Hi, my name is Umbrain Bhatti, and I'm here on behalf of the Disability Rights Legal Center. Our mission is to champion the rights of people with disabilities through education, advocacy, and litigation. We are here in strong opposition to the proposed ordinance, and we've expressed that opposition in previous written correspondence, so I'll refer you to that. But to summarize, we just want to say that the city, under the law, may not deny people with disabilities meaningful access to its programs, services, and activities, and may not disproportionately burden people with disabilities according to their unique needs, which is what we think this single lease requirement does. We understand the city's interest in resolving problems like excessive noise and congestion and drug activity, but the way to do so is not to pass an ordinance like this. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next speaker, come on up.
My name is Shayla Myers, and I'm a staff attorney at Betzetic Legal Services. Betzetic has provided free legal services to thousands of low-income people throughout Los Angeles County since 1974. In the interest of time today, I will simply echo the sentiments of my colleagues from other legal services providers here in Los Angeles. This proposed ordinance presents a number of substantial legal issues, including violations of the Fair Housing Act and the city's very real obligations to affirmatively further fair housing. The single lease requirement puts federal funding at risk and will substantially reduce low-income people's access to affordable housing, access that is already attenuated at best. Because we believe the ordinance raises serious legal concerns for the City of Los Angeles, we strongly encourage you to reject these provisions of the ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Last call, we have Talisa Carol Conley. Okay. I'd like to invite Randall Wolf, Valerie W., Larry Schultz, and Christina Spitz. That's Randall Wolf, Valerie W., Larry Schultz, and Christina Spitz. Good afternoon, ma'am.
I'm Valerie. That was Randy Wolf. Was the first one that came up already.
I'm sorry?
Randy Wolf was the first one that came up.
Okay.
Randy is mixed up.
All right. Well,
good afternoon. My name is Valerie, and I live in Northridge. I also live directly next door to one of the largest boarding homes in the West Valley, where there are currently 41 residents, with a list of problems that are endless, and getting clean and sober is not one of them. The West Valley Division alone currently has 35 community care facilities that are known of. It is the city's responsibility to protect not only the residents of these facilities, but the families that surround them. We're asking that you please support the city's attorney report and reject the planning report. The definition of the single housekeeping unit together with the lease agreement is needed and must be maintained before a clear definition of a boarding or rooming house can be established. And we undoubtedly cannot remove the parolee or probationer definition and conditional use from the ordinance and resolve those issues at a later date, as this requires immediate attention. I invite you to come and spend one day at my home. Then maybe you will finally offer a fair and balanced proposal. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I'm Larry Schulte. I'm a resident of Northridge. I'm in support of the ordinance. The boarding home regulations proposed in the city attorney's September 2011 report took a balanced approach that does not discriminate. It does not single out specific types of homes or specific types of individuals. Instead, it says that if you act like a boarding house business, you belong in a zone that legally allows this kind of business. It doesn't say that if you are a homeowner, an elder care resident, disabled, or in a sober living house, that you're not allowed in a low-density residential zone. But if you start renting with 2 or more leases, then you're acting like a boarding house business and belong in a zone where that is allowed. The focus is not on the user. This applies evenly to homeowners and group home operators. Please keep the lease agreement in the ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, honorable council members. My name is Christina Spitz. I'm chair of the Land Use Committee of Pacific Palisades Community Council and also vice president of Pacific Palisades Residents Association. It's the city's clear responsibility to enforce its zoning laws and to maintain safe and healthy neighborhoods. Pacific Palisades Residents Association strongly believes that the September 2011 ordinance drafted by the city attorney provides the best and most effective mechanism to achieve these important goals, in particular the use of the quantifiable one lease requirement instead of vague and unenforceable markers. And I just want to add, it's difficult to believe that the city attorney, who has spent I would say countless hours researching and drafting this ordinance, would have drafted something that would be subject to clear violation of federal law, as so many have argued here. It's just simply impossible for me to believe that. We urge you to reject the new recommendations and support the city attorney drafted ordinance. Thanks.
Our next group of speakers, Jerome Lubin, Steve Clare, Karen Wolf, and Cheryl Branch. Good day, sir.
My name is Jerome Lubin. I am past chair and currently vice chair of the LA County Mental Health Commission, and I'm also representing the position of the County Department of Mental Health Services, both of which include all of the city of Los Angeles in their service area. The existing and proposed changes will make our programs less effective unless there is permanent housing available to mental health people who basically suffer from brain diseases. We need to have permanent housing for these people so that the community can be protected by effective service delivery to individuals who we want to see recover.
Thank you for taking the time. Steve Clare, Karen Wolf, and Cheryl Branch. Good day, sir.
Good afternoon. My name is Steve Clare. I'm the Executive Director of the Venice Community Housing Corporation, a community development organization serving neighborhoods of Venice and Mar Vista on the west side of Los Angeles. Our primary concern here as an affordable housing developer, as Mike Arnold has already pointed out, is that this ordinance will undoubtedly increase homelessness in Los Angeles by prohibiting people from doubling up under separate rental agreements in low-density zones. It will affect not only poor families, but also elderly people seeking co-housing arrangements and people with disabilities, many of whom need caretakers. It will impact homeowners who are struggling to pay their mortgages and need to rent out rooms to make ends meet. It will impact students who must share housing while they are in school. And worst of all, for as much damage as this ordinance will do to so many, it will not accomplish what its proponents desire, a mechanism to effectively deal with irresponsible neighbors. As already been pointed out, offending tenants only have to avoid violation of this proposed ordinance, only have to sign one rental agreement. The only effective way to deal with this problem is to deal with the problem. And the city attorney...
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much. Karen Wolf, and again, I know you wrote eloquent letters, but let's get to the point that we can do within your 1 minute.
I'm sorry, what?
The letters and statements, you have 1 minute. So sometimes wrote something very eloquent,
Okay.
and please, your name?
I'm Karen Wolf. I'm a past member of the Venice Neighborhood Council Land Use and Planning Committee. I spent about 70 hours studying this issue and presented a report. The Neighborhood Committee and the Land Use and Planning Committee of the Venice Neighborhood Council both unanimously opposed this ordinance. Public nuisances should be addressed through the nuisance abatement program. I recommend that Plum request a report from that task force on how to improve their process. But seeking to determine what kinds of people with special living arrangements might present a public nuisance seems to take too broad a brush. It's true we residents deserve peace and quiet, but federal and state laws tell us we don't get to zone out the kind of people we don't want to live next to. When I ask people who support this ordinance how they reconcile specific elements of it, time is ticking. When I ask them how they reconcile specific elements of this, they say they just want something.
Thank you, ma'am.
And even the politicians say they know it'll be struck down in court, but they want something.
Cheryl Branch. Is Cheryl Branch here? Cheryl Branch here? Daphne Dionisio, are you here? Melinda Barker, Michelle C. Good day, sir. Good
Hi
afternoon.
there.
ma'am.
My name is Dr. Daphne Dionisio from Northridge, and I'm in support of the ordinance, but state licensed facilities serving 7 or more residents must not be allowed in all zones by right as a public benefit. Most cities first require advance notice and public hearing. When there are 7 or more in a low-density residence zone, the LA Municipal Code currently requires a zoning variance for adult daycares or something like a conditional use permit for other community care facilities. I support the ordinance, but to be fair and balanced, it needs to require a public hearing and either a zone change or a zoning variance to establish a facility serving 7 or more in a low-density zone. Thank you.
Say your name again.
Dr. Daphne Dionisio.
Thank you, ma'am.
Michelle C., Northridge. Doesn't the city of LA deserve better than what we have now? When we look around and see what other nearby cities have done, we keep asking ourselves, why doesn't our city do its job and do what other cities have done when it comes to regulating illegal group houses? And how much longer will it take? And then you need to ask yourself, as stewards and leaders of this great city of ours, what can we do to rein in and out of control situations and regulate group houses that are destroying the safety, welfare, and character of our neighborhoods? For example, the city of San Diego, Fontana, Orange, Pasadena, Riverside, Murrieta, Colton, San Bernardino, and others have enacted protective ordinances long ago. We, as your constituents, are asking you to do the same. Take a look at what other cities have done, use them as examples, and use some of their written guidelines to write us a good law, and we need it now. Please.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next speaker is Melinda Barker. Is Melinda Barker here? Cheryl Branch, are you here? Okay, we'll move on. James Stenson. Is James Stenson here? Harold Fujita. Harold Fujita. I believe this is Tracy Leiber and Vanya Quarles. Good day, sir.
Good afternoon.
Give us your name.
My name is James Stinson. I'm the treatment director for the residential unit at the Asian American Drug Abuse Program. And I just simply want to say this ordinance is written is not appropriate for the city or any of the communities here who are providing treatment. I think you need to reconsider it, and definitely sober livings do need to be regulated. I agree with that. But this ordinance is not targeting the issues really at hand that are being brought forth.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I'd like to speak into the microphone.
It's on? All right.
Let's just speak right into it.
Thank you. My name is Harold Fujita. I'd like to make clear at the outset, I am not here as a city employee. I am not here speaking on behalf of my employing city department. I'm here on my own time. I am, however, here as the father of 4 children, one of who is a adult who is developmentally disabled and has lived in group homes at times. I'm also speaking to you as the current chair of Area Board 10. And Area Board 10 opposes the ordinance as it's currently written. And we oppose it for 2 reasons. One of which is that limiting living options for unrelated adults who wish to live together in one residence is not a good idea. And we oppose it also for the legal reasons. You're going to lose this in court. You're going to lose, and the taxpayer money is going to be paying for your defense. This is not good law. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next.
Hi, I'm Tracy and I'm an addict. I'm also bipolar. I'm also a client at Cry Help Treatment Facility. I'd like to say, a few years ago, President Obama signed a bill, and that bill gave me a chance to get treatment this year. I'd also like to tell you and ask all of you to think about this. If someone in your family had cancer, what choice would you make? Would you let them die or would you get them treatment? Addiction is a disease. It is not a crime. Thank you.
Vanya Quarles. Vanya Quarles.
Vanya Quarles, and I'm with Starting Over, and I've heard a couple references to Colton and San Bernardino, and if you haven't been there before you decide to make policy based on those two areas, I would suggest that you go and take a look. I speak against this ordinance because I have been in sober livings, managed sober livings, and I am the executive director of an agency that works with homeless people coming out of prison, drug treatments, and without those things, without entities like Starting Over and other ones, they'd be in your backyard. I understand that we have a right to quiet use and enjoyment, but to say we're going to put people out on the streets, you're asking for us to come into your backyard, to move into your house. I think the ordinance is discriminatory. It targets treatment centers, sober livings, probationers, and parolees.
I think she has something to say. Okay. Karen Jarrett, ma'am, were you up? Come on up. Okay. What's your name?
Barbara Broidy.
Not yet, ma'am. I haven't called.
Barbara Broidy? I wasn't sure.
Not yet,
No.
ma'am. Okay. Karen Jarrett, Sharon Cummings, and Janet Turner.
Good afternoon. My name is Karen Jarrett. I reside in Northridge, and I'm proud to say that I've been clean and sober my whole life. I pay my taxes, and I've worked at the same job for 30 years. My request is that you do not make any changes to the single lease requirement as recommended in the city attorney's report dated September 13th, because it is not discriminatory, nor is it vague, and it clearly defines a low-density residential unit. And this clearly separates it from a boarding house, and I'd appreciate you taking this into thought when you make your decision. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Please come on up.
Good afternoon. Sharon Cummins, Mar Vista Community Council Chair, former Chair of Land Use and Planning at Mar Vista CC. This is about government accountability, social accountability, and citizen voice. Neighborhoods in Good Faith 5 years ago brought a significant citywide enforcement problem to the city for redress. The city researched and prepared a fair, impartial, non-discriminatory, measurable solution to the key aspect of the problem. What is a boarding house? It is the single lease. The lease provides a quantifiable code enforcement tool. Sadly, the opposition has not brought forward any useful substitute metric. This is a breach of social accountability to the neighborhoods in which many of these groups seek to operate. We've heard from numerous institutions, numerous groups, and numerous individuals here today that they don't like the single lease. However, LADBS cannot enforce the law when there's no quantifier. It becomes a further waste of LADBS scarce code enforcement resources to attempt to document unclear enforcement markers. If there should arise a problem with this metric, it can be brought back before the City Council for adjustment, and it should be.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Janet Turner?
Janet Turner, President of Pacific Palisades Community Council. Pacific Palisades Community Council voted unanimously to support the September 2011 Community Care Facilities Ordinance. We are opposed to several of the changes being recommended by the Planning Department. They're listed in a letter from us that you've been given today with suggested other language changes. We believe that the city attorney has done an appropriate, balanced, and enforceable proposal. We urge you to move this forward. Pacific Palisades doesn't have any objections to sober living homes, but we do have a problem with illegal boarding homes that cater to transient housing. And we thank you for taking action on this now.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay. We have Eric Hubbard. Eric Hubbard, are you here? Eric Hubbard, William Vertis, Renea, I believe it's Taninsky. I apologize if I mispronounced your name. And Lori Fusina. You're welcome to come on up behind the mic. Good afternoon, sir.
My name is Eric Hubbard. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I am representing Hoveness Inc. We provide housing services to homeless youth in Boyle Heights and East LA, and also the Boyle Heights East LA Homeless Coordinating Council. And we just like to simply say that permanent supportive housing and shared housing are being threatened by this ordinance, and they are proven ways to end homelessness and provide opportunities to some of our most vulnerable populations. And so we urge your opposition to this ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker, come on up.
Hi, my name is Renee Tenenty, and I'm a long-term person in recovery. I work at Cry Help Treatment Center in North Hollywood. And I just want to say that addiction has taken me to levels of shame, despair, and remorse that no person should ever have to experience. And it's only through treatment centers and sober livings that I have 3.5 years of recovery today. And I'm working with the treatment center that I had help from. And it's only through people who have walked this walk and talked this talk that I can be of service to others today. Living in a sober living has helped me be able to help others with the disease of recovery. And my sponsee is here today to speak on it as well.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Lori Fusina, and I should not be standing here. I have OD'd 3 times. Only because when I came out of my recovery, my treatment center, I didn't have support. I went out. Treatment is treatment. Recovery is when we step out the door. We need to have doors open for people. I am tired of seeing my peers. I'm an alcoholic. I have a fatal disease. I am tired of seeing my peers die, and I'm sick of going to funerals because my peers don't have homes. I'm in a treatment center. I have been in a treatment center. I have almost 18 months now clean and sober, and it's only through the grace of God, my higher power, that I have a sober living to go to. I have support. I'm now working hard. I'm making money. I become a taxpayer only because I have a sober living. Thank you.
William Verdes. Okay, we'll move on. Robert Colon. Mark Scott. Robert C-O-L-O-N. Mark Scott. Barbara Broyd. John Henry Matian. If I call your name, please come on up. If I called your name, please come to the microphone. Good afternoon, sir.
My name is Mark Scott. I'm a recovering addict at Cry Help. And there are a lot of people there who are going to walk out those doors with nowhere to go and go right back to what they were doing. As she said, be in your backyards, they might be in your living rooms. We need help. We've discovered that, and any help that y'all can give us would be greatly appreciated. All I'm looking to do is have a useful, productive life, and help anybody else I can. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Chairman Reyes. Barbara Brady, Westwood South of Santa Monica Boulevard Homeowners Association. The single lease option is not an invention of LA City. It's based on legal precedent, has been implemented in other cities, and survived tests in courts. It has withstood challenges and provided cities with a concrete framework for enforcement. The City of LA cannot afford to go off on its own and open up itself to new areas of potential litigation. We support the City Attorney's report. If the City of LA finds that it needs time to fine-tune the ordinance after initial implementation, it will be free to do so. It may not be perfect, but it is a whole lot better than what we have today and provides new enforcement strategies that are tested to replace ineffective ones in the past. To allow for the creation of community licenses and to place the burden of cleaning up those nuisances on neighbors and neighborhoods is a grave error. It is the city's duty to respect and protect the zone it has established, to protect the property values of its residents who have made huge sacrifices to own properties in this city. It's wrong to destabilize neighborhoods, and it's a frontal assault on all one properties.
Thank you very much. Next speaker.
My name is John Henry Matteau. Hello, Council. I am a recovered alcoholic, and I'm a vet. And I am a graduate of the New Directions program for recovering troubled veterans. Now, it's through this program that I was able to recoup and recover and rebuild from the troubled state of living that I was in when I was done with my deployment. I am the first graduate of a place called Chris's Place, Operation Welcome Home, which is in a nice suburban neighborhood near Culver City. We were allowed to be there, and we should allow to remain there for the sake of other vets who are returning as myself. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you for your service. Deanna Slays, Mark Malcolm, Deanna Slays, S-L-A-I-S, Mark Malone, then Raina Natalie Brown. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon. My name is Deanna Slice. I am currently a resident at Cry Help in North Hollywood, California. And this year we're celebrating 41 years of amazing service to help people with the disease of addiction. And with that, we use transitional housing. And without transitional housing, it would be difficult for us to learn how to live life on life's terms without being in treatment and using transitional housing for giving us what we need to learn how to live again. I have 59 days clean today, and I don't think I would be able to be standing here if it wasn't for places like Cry Help. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Good afternoon, sir.
My name's Mark Malone. I'm representing Fred Brown Recovery Services. 13 years ago, I came there addicted to drugs and on probation. Fred Brown's has helped thousands over 30 years, and it's a neighborhood program. We need more programs like Fred Brown's, not less. Our home is one of the nicest and cleanest in our neighborhood. Please allow us to remain and others to remain to continue helping people.
Thank you, sir. Roxanne and Natalie Brown, Gisette Burnham Sr., Autumn M. Elliott, Scott Barron. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon. My name is Roxana Natali Brown. I'm the Executive Director of Fred Brown Recovery Services. And as Mark Malone said before me, we've been in business and helping people, the business of helping people for over 30 years, or 30 years in April. And we have seen thousands of men and women recover from the disease of addiction and go on to become productive members of our society, taxpayers, voters. And I agree that we need to do something differently with the houses that run amok in neighborhoods. I really wouldn't want one in my neighborhood either. But you can't group us together. You can't group us with the people who have horrible houses and become a blight in the neighborhood. We're not them. I mean, we haven't had complaints in all these years. We must be doing something right. And there are many, many of us that do that. Many of us are good, solid foundation, beautiful homes and beautiful houses.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Gisette Burnham, Autumn M. Elliott, and Scott Barron. Come on up, ma'am.
Good afternoon. I'm Autumn Elliott. Andy Burke and I are attorneys at Disability Rights California. And your instinct in wanting him to speak in the beginning and not me was right on. He's way more engaging than I am. There's a spectrum of housing options for people with disabilities, everything from institutions all the way to living independently in the community. And the new definitions of boarding house and family in this ordinance hit a really important part of that spectrum, which is people who are able to live in the community by sharing housing. A lot of those people need to be on separate leases, either because of funding reasons, programmatic reasons, or because they have to preserve their public benefits. If you pass this ordinance, you're telling those people, get out of low-density neighborhoods. Go to an institution, go to a high-density neighborhood, go anywhere but here.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Scott Barron. Sorry?
That's Scott Barron from our Developmental Disability
he
Peer
spoke.
Self-Advocacy Unit, and he spoke. Thank
Thank you, Mr. Barron. Vladimir Melamed, Josh Smith, Greg Spiegel, and Annie Margaret, I believe. Good day, sir.
Good afternoon. I'm Director of Archive, Library, and Historical Curatorship, Los Angeles Museum of the Holocaust. Although
You're Vladimir?
Excuse me?
Your name is Vladimir?
Vladimir Melamed,
Okay.
yes. Although I'm here on personal reason, and I'm strongly oppose this proposed ordinance, and here is why. In my opinion, and observe, it does inflict social injustice. It also inflicts segregation. In simple words, it's okay to be in industrial zone, but it's not okay for the sober living housing in zone R1, R2. So in other words, because it is induced by homeowners, it is good to be somewhere, but not in my backyard. Also, homeowners, as other citizens, are members of society, and society is certain degree is at the fault of society that so many people are addicted to alcohol and drugs. So the city council should address it appropriately, and Los Angeles is famous of its democratic tradition. So this democratic tradition is to serve people. In this case, it's to serve everyone equally.
Thank you very much. Larissa Melamed, Josh Smith, Greg Spiegel. Come on up, sir. Come on up.
Good afternoon, council members. Josh Smith, Executive Director of People in Progress.
That's right.
People in Progress. We are a City of Los Angeles contractor, a federal government contractor with the Department of Veterans Affairs, a County of Los Angeles contractor, a State of California contractor, providing licensed treatment services in a commercially zoned area in a residential setting. This ordinance would, unfortunately, the way it's currently written as we read it, cause us to comply with these performance standards in a C zone. People keep telling us no, but no one can show me on paper that that's not the case, and we're incredibly concerned about the wording of this particular document as it relates to having to get a conditional use permit and the time and money consistent with that in a commercial zone where we're able to technically legally operate for 37 years. So we are quite concerned about the way this language is written and drafted. We're looking for some grandfathering or something that keeps licensed providers in commercially zones intact without some onerous expectations. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Larissa Melamed, Greg Spiegel, Annie Margaret, come on up.
Good evening.
Good day. Hi, good afternoon.
My name is Larissa Melamed, and I'm strongly opposing this ordinance. Of course, I'm a teacher and also a mother of a son who has addiction problems, and I require help to resolve this issue in favor of this vulnerable community. Number one, our city council should show more concerns about opening multiple medical marijuana stores to spread addiction disease like a virus, to get more young people mentally ill. Medical marijuana is a gateway drug. They're introducing young people to other more stronger drugs. It's supposed to be only for really physically ill people, accessible for HIV, cancer, chemotherapy. However, it's accessible for all young people. They get more and more mentally sick because people with addiction, they have brain disease. They very intelligent, but they do have brain disease. They cannot use any drugs at all. The city council doesn't show any concern about allowing legal sales for bath salt at tobacco stores.
Thank you,
so
ma'am.
we have to focus on this issue,
Thank you very much.
not to promote drugs.
Thank you very much. Greg Spiegel, Annie Margaret, come on up, guess your name.
Annie Margaret with Public Counsel Law Center.
Council has received a letter signed by 37 organizations and coalitions, including affordable housing providers, homeless and veteran service providers, and legal aid lawyers with grave concerns about the ordinance. In addition to the policy and fair housing concerns outlined in the letter, Public Counsel submits that the ordinance is inconsistent with the city's general plan housing element. The housing element requires the city to eliminate barriers to building housing for people that are homeless. As discussed by countless advocates, this ordinance creates new barriers to permanent supportive housing for homeless people. The housing element also sets out several programs aimed at preventing persons with disabilities from becoming homeless, including leveraging MHSA and Section 8 funding for permanent supportive housing. This ordinance is in direct conflict. It prevents developers from accessing these needed sources because the funding sources require multiple leases. The housing element also requires amendment of the zoning code to facilitate shared housing. This ordinance instead imposes barriers to the production of shared housing. The ordinance does not make good policy sense. It conflicts with the housing element. It'll subject the city to legal liability, and it should not be passed.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much. Sharon Reporter, are you here? Fernando Gaetan, Brandon Frederick, and Peter B. Starks.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm Sharon Report. I'm with the Corporation for Supportive Housing.
Can you speak into the microphone so we can hear you?
I'm sorry. This ordinance would prohibit shared supportive housing in over half the city. Supportive housing is permanent housing with services and is the only proven method for ending long-term homelessness among people with disabilities. Unlike a licensed facility which provides care and supervision, not housing, to people unable to live independently, supportive housing promotes independence. State law exempts supportive housings from licensing, partly because every tenant has to sign their own lease. But because it is dependent on federal and state funding, it is robustly regulated. We know this ordinance would affect hundreds who are either currently living in shared supportive housing or who are now homeless but could access shared housing under development. Yet, even if the ordinance results in homelessness for a single person with a disability who's at risk of dying 30 years younger and will cost taxpayers thousands more in hospital and jail costs because of their homelessness, this ordinance is overbroad. CS8 therefore joins every housing organization, SCAMP, and all city housing agencies in opposition. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Fernando Gaetan. Come on up, sir.
Fernando Gaetan with the Legal Aid Foundation, Los Angeles. I join my colleagues at the other legal services organizations in the city to oppose this ordinance. Specifically, I want to zero in on the single lease provision and the way that this impacts low-income families. Legal Aid Foundation is a frontline law firm for low-income families in Los Angeles, and so what we see are people struggling right now to survive this Great Recession. Part of the mechanisms for surviving this Great Recession is finding alternatives to affordable housing. There's a dearth of affordable housing in the city, and part of the solution is to have families join up. They often join up into a single-family home, share household, and they do this under multiple leases. This provision would severely tie the hands of people who are trying to survive this economic crisis, and it would also limit the ability of service providers to provide them with different options as well. I strongly urge you to oppose this ordinance.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker.
Good afternoon. My name is Peter Starks. I'm going to begin by letting you know that I strongly oppose this ordinance. I'm a 63-year-old Vietnam combat veteran, wounded twice in Vietnam at 18 years old. I shot heroin for 40 years. I was addicted to crack cocaine 30 years. I went untreated PTSD issues for 40 years, untreated mental health issues for 40 years. I pushed 6 shopping carts for over 30 years in the streets of Los Angeles. I now have 4 years clean and sober due to my life-changing experience with the Amity Foundation. If an apartment was handed to me on a platter, I am financially able to take it. I would not accept it right now. I need support. I need those parolees and probationers that help me in this process, that we strive on a daily basis, continuing this life-changing process. I need that support. I need sober livers. I need transition housing.
Thank you, Mr. Starks. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Brandon Frederick. I grew up in a broken home and sought acceptance through other outlets, such as drugs. Due to my lifestyle, I spent the last 15 years of my life in the state of California prisons. I continue to repeat the same mistakes due to a lack of education and discipline in my life. Today, I'm currently a student at the Amity Foundation. I have been involved in Amity since November 2011, being released from Los Angeles County Jail. Since I've been at Amity, they have helped me rebuild my life and teach me a new way of living. Also, they worked on my family, reunification, and the means of family orientated. Today, I have a real opportunity for success. Like programs like Amity needed to break the cycle and develop ethics, set some goals, and to live a healthier and sober life. I don't know where I'd be if it wasn't for treatment programs like Amity today. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is Mark Fawcett here? Mark Fawcett, Nathan Charles, Lisa Serta, Jesse Lasoya, Doug Bond, I believe. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. My name is Mark Fawcett. I'm chairman of the Los Angeles Regional Reentry Partnership. We are a partnership of over 75 community and faith-based organizations representing every council district in Los Angeles. We oppose this ordinance. It is our responsibility as community members to support housing and transformation of lives here in the city of Los Angeles. The proposed ordinance would not allow us to embrace as a community, the many men and women that are at risk for becoming homeless again and returning to a life of drugs and crime. If you believe in making our streets safe, building families, and supporting permanent supportive housing, I urge you to not support this measure. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker, come on up. Come on up.
Hi, my name is Lisa Serta. I am the chair of Tarzana Property Owners Against Poorly Planned Development. This is a very short-sighted ordinance.
He's speaking to the microphone.
It's a very short-sighted ordinance. And for it being put forth by the planning department and the city attorneys, it's actually allergic to both regulation and planning and property zoning protection. So it's a failure on every single thing. This side does not win. This side does not win. It has failed to meet what the city actually needs, and I hope you oppose it.
Thank you, ma'am. Jesse Lasoya, come on up, or that's okay. Come on, give us.
My name is Nathan Charles. I am currently in long-term treatment at Tarzana Treatment Center. The ridiculous idea that the city wants to cause more homelessness, therefore causing more drug abusers running rampant, will turn to more crime.
Check it out.
I strongly oppose this.
Thank you.
Hello there. My name is Jesse Lasoya. I'm here representing the Amity Foundation. I have endured a hopeless life as a child. I spent many years in foster care in my early teens to early adult years addicted to drugs and alcohol. Due to my addiction, I got involved in criminality, which escalated in going to jail and eventually going to prison. I did 4 years in California State Prison and was released in January 2011. I had nowhere to parole to because I didn't want to infringe upon my family who are on probation or parole. Still today, I'm unable to live under the same roof with my significant other due to my past record. We aren't co-defendants either. I sought out for treatment because I was tired of the way I was living and ashamed the way that my life had become. I enrolled into the Amity Foundation and still am actively involved in it. I have been helped tremendously in so many areas from my counselors and mentors. The Amity Foundation hasn't given me the teachings that I need to live a prosperous life, but has given me hope when all hope was gone. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon. My name is Doug Bond. I'm with the Amity Foundation. I'm here in opposition to this ordinance. The Amity Foundation relies heavily on housing as one of the foundations for success to provide services to the individuals who are coming out of jail and in prison. One of the things that we provide the most is for housing for individuals once they leave our programs of treatment. Yes, we have a conditional use permit, but our smaller providers that we work with do not. We hope that you guys will take this into consideration in developing families and individuals to move from degradation to dignity.
And your name again, I'm sorry?
My name is Doug Bond.
Doug Bond.
And also 6 years ago, I went through these programs as well and benefited from this. I transitioned into what would be called a sober living. Today I live successfully, and I'm a provider, taxpayer, and a father and a husband. Thank you.
Congratulations, sir. Laura Jones, Laura Moore Watson, Roberta Newton, Dadis Elliott. You folks can come on up if you'd like, if you're here. Laura Jones, Lorena Watson, Roberta Newton, the DC Elliott, I believe. Come on up. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. My name is Lowell Jones. I'm a 53-year-old. For the last 40 years, I've lived homeless. I've been addicted to drugs, in and out of the system, prison. I've just, for the last 30 years, I've lived on Skid Row, personally. I mean, in and out of the streets, the alleys, whatever. That was me. Due to a treatment center, the Amity Foundation, I come to realize that there is a change. They gave me a second chance at life. Today, not only am I a student at the Amity Foundation, but I represent it proudly as a staff. Today, I'm also a lease owner for the Substance Abuse Shelter Plus Care low-income housing downtown on Skid Row. Imagine that, how we can find a safe haven down on Skid Row. Thank you for letting me share.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Lorena Watson. I'm representing the Amity Foundation. I'm a 45-year-old woman who spent 20 years incarcerated or in treatment. My last term ended 12/10. I'm working towards my first year clean. Before coming to Amity, I didn't do a lot of harm to others. I did more of the harm to myself. I was in complete denial about the horrors of my addiction and the right work that it would take to reroute me towards the road of recovery, which entails treating the whole person rather than the addiction, engaging in encounter groups with other ex-offenders, sharing our experience, strength, and hope on a daily basis. If this ordinance is enforced, others, nor myself, will be afforded the opportunity to change our lives, take suggestions and specific guidance from those who've been where we've been, and become productive members of society. Our success depends upon loving each other until we can love ourselves. Thank you.
Good afternoon, honorable city council members. My name is DC Elliott, and I am a Vietnam-era veteran who, after 20 years of sobriety, productive work in the community as a counselor, divorce, and some medical issues, found myself unable to afford the $1,500 monthly mortgage on my home in Long Beach, and found myself needing to enter into shared housing arranged through located in a single-family residence. But more importantly, as the aftercare coordinator at New Directions, part of what I do is help formerly homeless veterans find and maintain permanent supportive housing. As you know, we have a lot of veterans about to come back from Iraq and Afghanistan who have PTSD, TBI, possibly substance abuse and mental health issues. These gentlemen are going and females are going to need permanent supportive housing. I believe that standards are necessary for facilities, but the ordinance as it stands would cause many residences to provide quality housing to close for veterans. I want to find a balance between these two goals. I'd like everyone who was in the room who's a vet and will become homeless if this ordinance passes to stand or raise their hands. Thank you.
I'm going to call the next cards if I could. Danielle Garcia, Roberto Newton, Benjamin Oliver, and James Wolford.
I'm Daniel Garcia, and I represent myself, and I want to represent my people with disability. I am very, very surprised that the city council and the city council does not understand how difficult it is to get a single family housing for on people with disabilities. And I have been on finding houses when I was a student with disability. It was so difficult for me that it was impossible for me because it was not really feasible for me. And I want to say one more thing, that the only way that you develop property is when you develop life.
Thank you very much. Sorry? Jean Waldrop. Okay. James, yes, James Walford.
Jean Waldrop.
Didn't call your name yet.
Okay, step back. Come back.
All right.
James Wolford.
Great, thank you.
And I am the successful product of 3 years in supportive living. I also am a U.S. Army veteran. I want to remind you that there's going to be about 6,000 veterans sleeping on the streets of L.A. County tonight. The President of the United States and the Secretary of the Veterans Affairs have mandated that we end homelessness in, a reasonable amount of time, which is coming up pretty quick. And this law has a negative impact on those goals. We need to write better laws. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
My name is Benjamin Oliver. I was just sitting in the audience and I was thinking about my mother, how she used to take in people who didn't have a place to stay, whether they paid her or not, it didn't matter to her. But unlike her, I always found it hard to do the right thing. But by bumping my head so much and ending up in treatment, one thing treatment has taught me that the drugs is just a symptom of my problem. My problem is me, and treatment has enabled me to see that. And now that's what I'm working on. I have to change everything about me. The world is not the problem. The problem is me. And without treatment centers, it would be no place for me to go but back out there in the streets and do more harm to myself and other people. So please, I stand against this ordinance. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Calling again Roberta Newton, Antonio Strickland, Robin Armstrong, John Whitaker, and Renee Martin. Rena Martin. Apologize.
Good afternoon, Councilman.
Good afternoon.
My name is Antonio Strickland, and I'm against the ordinance because as an American, one has the opportunity to dream, to hope, and to change his life. President Obama now had a law going into effect that no child is left behind. How about no addict left behind? If you close these facilities, like they talked about the Pine Hotel, you will send so many addicts back to the street to destroy Los Angeles County. So I'm against these ordinances. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
John Whitaker with Tarzana Treatment Center in Aware. Today, I'm John Whitaker, a person in long-term recovery. History will be made today. If this community doesn't care ordinance continues to the full city council, litigation will ensue, and today will be the day that we mental health and substance abuse disordered individuals will recognize and then celebrate in the years to come the beginning to the end of the prejudices and discrimination that we have long endured. If it is passed today, the three of you will be going down in infamy as those men who in this election year didn't have the courage to do the right thing and stand up against the rich white landowners who throughout history have oppressed the less fortunate, the different, and now the mentally ill, the homeless, and the disabled. However, if two of you choose to do the right thing and reject the community doesn't care ordinance, you will go down in history as those who did the honorable thing, made sure the generations of oppressed people who fought for the Civil Rights and Fair Housing Acts of 1964, 68, 88, 91 will continue for all residents of this city of the angels.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Hi, my name is Robin, and I'm in long-term recovery. I am a very grateful addict, and I'm grateful to be able to have the opportunity to be in treatment. If there weren't treatment centers, I probably would have died out there because I didn't like myself. And it was the treatment center that I'm in today that has taught me how to live and how to love myself again, and has taught me that I'm not a piece of shit and that I am somebody. And I oppose the law against, limiting the productive sober living homes in our society. And because I've seen nothing but good come out of them. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Good afternoon.
Hi, my name is Rihanna Martin, and I'm a long-term resident at Tarzana Treatment Center. I've now been there for 6 weeks. This is the longest amount of clean time I've had in 12 years since I was 17 years old. Treatment has given me the hope. Without treatment, I wouldn't be standing here before you today. I would probably be in that hotel, Pine Tree, or dead. Instead, I am gaining the tools to be a productive member of society.
Thank you, ma'am. Susan Burton, Jane Waldrop, Michael Langford, Walter Alder, Larry, I believe it's Skurlock, and then Angela De Leon, come on up. Susan Burton.
Jean Waldrop.
Okay, just come on up and give us your name.
Hi, my name is Jean Waldrop. I was recently released from prison on the AB 109 program. Me and my children are currently at New Way of Life. If y'all in these programs, there's people like me that are coming out and would have nowhere to go. I'm a recovering drug addict. I've been clean. I'm sober. I have my kids. They're clean and healthy. They have somewhere safe to lay down at night. I'm not living in a sleazy motel out there selling everything I can to keep a roof over their head and support a drug habit. They're healthy. They're happy. If y'all take these programs away, there's a lot of women like me that just want this opportunity. I'm able to do everything that I need to do to keep this sobriety. It's just a wonderful program. There are really some really good programs out there for us. Well, see, she agrees.
Yeah.
That's all.
Very emphatic.
Kids, let's go. Paris, say thank you and come on.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your patience.
My name is Susan Burton, and I'm the founding director of a New Way of Life Reentry Project. I've been providing services for 14 years for women who are coming back into the community after some time of incarceration, and it's a valuable service that I provide. This ordinance would actually push people to a place that their backs would be totally up against the wall and they'd be out, I just think sometimes how far can people be pushed, back and their lives tossed around, on the wishes of, I guess, or the uncomfortability of people of means. And these are people who are poor and struggling and just trying to make a way, trying to obey laws and get their lives back on track. It just kind of behooves me. And, one of the things I think when I lay in the bed is that this ordinance is, immoral.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. Michael Langford, Walter Alder, come on up.
Yes, my name is Michael Langford. I'm a U.S. Army vet, and I'm alcoholic. I got PSTT and bipolar. I'm in long-term treatment at New Directions, and if I didn't have a place to go after this to sober living, I'd be homeless again. So I definitely believe that we need the sober livings. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Please state your name.
Hi, my name is Larry Skurlock. I'm a veteran of the U.S. Army. I'm also a member of New Directions. And I oppose this proposition because, I wouldn't have nowhere to go when I got out of prison a few months ago. And now that I have somewhere to go, I now have a future and a hope. And it's because of the program in New Directions being there and available for me because I served for this country. I served in this country, for the Constitution, so that, there wouldn't be this kind of discrimination even against anybody, And to say that we're against addicts living in our neighborhoods and stuff, well, what if your kids become addicts? Where are they going to go to get help? Thank you.
Say your name again. Good afternoon, sir.
My name is Walter Elder. I'm also a vet, Marine vet. I beat cancer 2 years ago, and I'm in a program right now. If it wasn't for the program, I don't think I'd be around. I'm also a drug addict, and right now my life has changed, and we need these houses. I've been out on the street for years, walking snow high, walking all night. I did it all. Don't have to live like that no more today. You know what I'm saying? And especially these females out there. You know what I'm saying? They ain't supposed to be out in the street. They're supposed to always have a place to go, somewhere to live. You know what I'm saying? I mean, me, I could do it. But the females out there, man, come on. You got to give them a chance. That's all I
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Angela De Leon. I'm a taxpayer.
Angela De Leon?
De Leon, yes, sir.
Okay.
As well as the mother of a disabled American veteran who is helped by New Directions. And I parrot what he says also about the females. I worked hard to get help for females, but was shot down. Anyway, about last year, an empowerment group wrote this letter to the consul stating...
Speak into the microphone so we can hear you.
Okay. Last year, an empowerment group wrote this letter to your consul asking that stating that they target the needs of USC students, and these students should be exempt from this regulation. Here's a copy of the letter. Now, my question is, don't our vets, people who gave a blank check on their life, deserve the same targeted help that the USC students get and others? Also, those on parole need that. The NIMBY neighbors, it seems like, would be allowed to help those who they feel that who they deem fit for this, and for help, and those who are disabled veterans, those who are American veterans who have problems will be shot down, and people like district attorneys will be able to figure out a way to shut people down, like me, who had tried to open a home for female veterans.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, New Directions.
Naomi Washington, Emerson Rivera. Naomi Washington, Emerson Rivera, Keith Hawkins, Linda Hallenrick, I believe, Annette McDonald, James O'Brien, Naomi Washington, Emerson Rivera. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, esteemed councilman. My name is Keith Hawkins. I'm a disabled veteran at New Directions. And, I suffer from homelessness and addictive issues, okay? And let's be clear about what this really is, What we're talking about here is we're talking about fear and discrimination, all right? Fear that people like me, right, will negatively taint and threaten these pristine communities, okay? Discrimination a group of people that's been stigmatized because of society's attitudes about addiction and homelessness, okay? People, we understand your fear. But fear does not absolve you of your God-given responsibility to help. We live in difficult times right now, all right? We're not talking about illegal immigration or anything like that. What we're talking about is United States citizens, okay? We're talking about a disservice, right? We're talking about the disservice that's being done to people that's been of service to this country, all right? And it's just not right.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much. Next speaker.
Good afternoon. My name is Emerson Rivera, and I reside at a rehabilitation center at Tarzana Treatment Center. I am here to inform you that drug treatment does work because I am a better man now for myself and my family. Now that I'm this new person, I want to give back to the community and help another addict the way I receive help. Therefore, it is important to keep treatment facilities open. One voice can make a change. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Annette McDonald. I am a resident of San Pedro, a constituent of District 15, former employee of Congresswoman Janice Hahn, and I'm also a board member of the Beacon House, and I'd like Mario to say a few words. Thank you.
My name is Mario Mungre. I am a registered addiction specialist, alcohol and other drug counselor, certified by the state of California. And I am opposed to the ordinance simply because it isn't needed. You already have a nuisance ordinance in place, nuisance laws in place to take care of any of the problems that have been stipulated by those that support it. The ordinance is overkill. You don't need it, and you need to avoid the litigation that certainly lays ahead.
Susan, did you fill out a card? Did he fill out a card?
Did.
Okay, because I can't find it, but... okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. And folks, when I call your name, that's the person who should speak, because that way we're fair to everybody that wrote out a card and waited. Please, sir.
James O'Brien, long-term recovery at Tarzana Treatment Center. Hey, I hear a lot of these people here saying the word nuisance. Don't you know if you take away the guidance and structure of treatment and sober living, it'll bring a whole new meaning to the word nuisance.
Thank you. We call Naomi Washington, who's still here. Linda Hollerick. Now, folks, we still got about almost an hour's worth of cards. Now, I don't want to keep you any longer than you have to be here, but I do not want to deny your right to speak. There's one way to address this, and I'll leave this up to you because I'll keep calling the cards because that's what we should do. But I know it's running late, and some of you had other obligations, and there's traffic. If you are content with just standing up and telling us that you oppose this legislation, we can do that, or I'll continue going through the cards. So, because we still have to go through the discussion. So those who want to continue going through the cards, please raise your hand. Okay, we keep going. Veronica Adson. Did I call, come on up? Did I call your name?
My name is Miss Polk, Artist Polk.
Artist Polk?
Yes.
I'm
a member at LA CAN, Los Angeles Community Action Network. I gave you my card.
I know, but I don't believe I called your name yet. So let me go ahead and I'll call your name when I get to your card. I did call Linda Hollerick, Naomi Washington. I did call those names. If not, Veronica Adson. Olson. There you go. I'm sorry.
All right, no problem.
And then we have Rose Feinbergs, Cameron Jones, and Tori Allen. Come on up.
My name is Veronica Olson, and I'm a United States Air Force veteran. I've been on and off homeless for a handful of years. Since December 27th, I have been living at New Directions Mitchell House. Every day I'm working on my new life and my health at New Directions. I'm learning a new and better way of life. I'm learning about my alcohol and drug abuse and about my issues like anxiety, depression, and PTSD. The treatment I'm receiving has brought me closer to my family and God. This outrageous law will force New Directions to close down Mitchell, Barrington, and Chris's Place. If you allow this to happen, I will be back on the streets, homeless and hungry, without the treatment every human who reaches out for help deserves. Please don't do this to me. Please think about the millions of still suffering addicts that will one day have enough of the street life to ask for help. Do you really want to yank that helping hand away? I couldn't do it.
Thank you, ma'am. Coming up,
My name is Rose Feinberg, and I'm in long-term recovery. I am the nightmare you've all heard about, the alcoholic housewife. I used to get in my car and drive all over town. The last stint of driving drunk ended up in a broken wrist. I thank God I only hurt myself instead of crashing into someone's car filled with kids. Tarzana Treatment Center has saved my life. They have taught me how to live alcohol-free and introduced me to AA and a new way of life. Without them, I would still be out there driving under the influence. Maybe next time I wouldn't be so lucky. Please don't take our recovery centers or sober living houses away. There are so many alcoholics I know that have nowhere to go after treatment, and that could cause a lethal relapse. Without them, the homes, so many addicts and alcoholics could die and could maybe kill innocent people.
Give us your name.
Cameron Jones. I'm a 1992 graduate of Harvard Law School and a 2006 graduate of Genesis House Sober Living Program. Because I have one diploma, I can use the other. You've heard today from a broad coalition that includes members of the Los Angeles recovery community, fair housing advocates, advocates for veterans, disabled persons, low-income families, and several departments of the City of Los Angeles and the State of California. This coalition strongly believes that the ordinance as presently drafted violates a host of California and federal laws, including the California Fair Employment and Housing Act, Title VIII of the Civil Rights Act of 1968, the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1992, and Section 1983 of Title 42 of the United States Code. If this ordinance is put into effect, this broad coalition opposing the ordinance will have no choice but to immediately and vigorously commence legal proceedings. This isn't just homeowners versus addicts. We're all families.
Thank you, sir. I'm sorry, man, just give me 1 minute. I need to make an announcement because of the prolonged time of this committee. I need to make an announcement that if there are folks who parked in P1, you would need to move your car to P2. If it's P1, which is the first level, because at 6 they're going to close the gates, and I guess, they'll get cited, I'm sorry. So at P1, if you did park in P1, you would get cited, so I want to advise you if you can move your car to P2, which means going over to City Hall East, going down to the parking level. So if you're at P1, you need to move your car to P2. Okay, ma'am.
My name is Toy Allen. I'm disabled, left leg below the knee amputee, and I'm a parolee. And I just want to ask the question that aren't parolees and probationers and disabled people entitled to a safe and secure place to live? And it was mentioned earlier that these group homes will be better off in different zones where they belong, but I don't understand that. You know, I think we're all people, we're all human beings, and we should all be treated equally. Just because one particular house may cause a nuisance to you, like they said, please use the nuisance order or law or whatever. And I strongly oppose this. Thank you.
Terrence Jones, Crystal Kendall, Paul Dumont, Yvonne Johnson, Robert Brito, come on up. Terrence, come on, go ahead.
Start now.
Please give us your name.
Hi, my name is Terrence Jones. I live at a sober living, and I've been there for quite some time now. And I've come to see that sober livings, it's just like anything in life. It's 50-50 with anything. It's good and it's bad and everything. But sober livings, the overall idea, what everybody's been talking about today, is that it's a path, it's paving the way for people to get their lives back together and to have a second chance at life. If you take that away from people, then what do they have? And you're trying to, you can't just put them in a group and say, this is our problem area. If we get rid of this area, then our neighborhoods are just going to grow better. How are they going to grow better? You still got gangs, you still got drug activity with the regular community, so don't just target sober livings.
Thank you, sir. Please come on up.
My name is Crystal Kendall. I too am a sober living resident. I was born into a long line of addiction, and untreated addiction, I should say, and I was fortunate, I was very blessed to be introduced to treatment centers and then to have the opportunity to go into sober living. Sober living taught me a new way to live and taught me that I am not just one of those people, and I do too also deserve the right to be in those neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
My name is Paul Duwan. I'm a recovering drug addict and the Vice President of North Hills West Neighborhood Council. I hear a lot of talk about discrimination against the disabled population in our city. The characteristics of the people who are supporting this ordinance are wealthy white people from Granada Hills and Pacific Palisades. They're right here.
Please, sir.
Wealthy white people from Pacific Palisades and Granada Hills. They want to send the people of color and the people that are poor that often find themselves in need of drug and alcoholism treatment and addiction services and sober living. They want to get them out of their white neighborhood and send them back to the hood where they belong. They want us to live in the ghetto instead of in Mitch's pretty white neighborhood. We belong in every neighborhood in this city, and we will be living in every neighborhood in this city, regardless of what law you pass. You're discriminating against a protected class, and you're discriminating against minorities and poor people.
Thank you,
it's
sir.
not going to be tolerated. Amy Brothers is wrong. She's wrong.
Thank you,
The
sir.
Fire Housing Lawyer's got it right. She is wrong.
They have disrupted the meeting. Thank you. Speakers, please.
My
What's your name?
Johnson. From what I'm hearing, you guys have a mix-up between flop houses and sober livings.
Can I have your name, please?
Yvonne Johnson.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, you have a difference between flop houses and sober livings. Sober livings, I mean, you guys are really focused on flop houses, not sober livings. Sober livings are structured and they save lives. To, give us alcoholics and addicts a chance. Today I'm drinking juice, not alcohol.
Good afternoon. My name is Robert Guido. I've lived in several different kinds of shared living housing. Right now I stay in a sober living. For y'all to pass this ordinance, it'll put people like me on the streets. I've lived in several different kinds, and if it wasn't for the one I'm living in right now, I wouldn't be here standing with you. I was recently released from an institution, and before being released, I made up my mind that if I was going to be on the streets, that I would kill myself. Thanks to the sober living that I'm in right now, I'm alive, I'm stable on my medications, I'm getting treatment for my recovery and my addiction and also my mental health as well. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Have Jennifer Miller, Melody Velasquez, John Whitaker, Aikisha, I believe. I apologize. Okay. Okay, Susan DeMont. Please come on up.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Millar, and I'm currently a resident of the Sober Living. 2 years ago, I was on parole. I was mentally unstable. I was battling my addictions, and today I'm off parole. I am stable on my medications. I am in recovery, and I'm fixing to move out on my own. And become, and if it weren't for sober living, I wouldn't be able to do any of that, and I wouldn't be the productive member of society I am today. So if you pass this ordinance, people like me who come behind me aren't going to have the opportunities that I had to better their life. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. Please come on up. Good afternoon.
Hi, my name is Natalie Velasquez, and I live in a mother's and children's house. I am here to represent all the children. When I was little, I used to live out in the streets without any food or any water and anything like that. So when my mom found the programs for the help for children and mothers, it was like heaven for me, and it took me out of the streets. I got a better education. Now I'm getting straight A's and all. And without this program, I really don't think I would be here now. I probably would have been dead by now. So please just don't take them away, and thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you,
My name's Ike Eicher. I own the Recovery Zone Sober Livings, and I'm a member of this Los Angeles Sober Living Coalition and one of the founders of the San Fernando Valley Sober Coalition.
You could lift the microphone a little bit. There
Is
you
that
go.
better?
Yes.
Okay. We're talking about displacing a whole lot of people without an alternative. When these people leave these homes, where do you think they're going to go? There's no place else for them to go other than maybe that motel that you guys spoke about earlier with the 43 arrests full of drug addicts, prostitutes, and drug dealers. You might as well ask a diabetic to live in a candy store. You're going to kill a lot of people if you do this. I feel for the neighbors. They have a right for peace of mind. That's what they're talking about mostly, peace of mind. I hadn't heard one of them get up here and say, well, some guy from a sober living robbed me, or some guy from a sober living did this or that to me. All they're saying is that they're afraid because we have a sketchy past, and I had a sketchy past. I'm 20 years clean because of sober living. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, Susan Dumont, North Hollywood. It's amazing for me to sit here and witness. On one hand, everyone here can allow the gentleman that was before and here in a handicap chair to go first out of courtesy. Maybe open the door for a mother and child. Maybe offer a seat to a weak veteran because we're watching. But on the other hand, when nobody's going to be looking, you guys are going to be the first ones to consider making that handicapped man homeless, making that recovering woman back there with her babies homeless, and making that weak veteran homeless because nobody's watching. Shame on you. Shame on you, all you NIMBYs.
Please, ma'am. Hey, Susan Dumont, Michael Ray, Antonio Torres, Dave Sheridan, I believe it's Linda Ramos, but come on up, sir.
Thank you. My name is Dave Sheridan. I'm a board member of the Sober Living Network, and I'm also on the executive committee of the National Association of Recovery Residences. We've talked a lot about what this law does and doesn't do. What we haven't talked a lot about is whether it is or isn't legal. And let's kind of make things really simple. Laws that are legal in this area, you have to ask yourself, does it impair access to housing for people with disabilities? Does it target who lives in a home rather than what they do in the home or how many there are? If the answers to those two questions are yes, you've got a discriminatory ordinance. The architects of this picked the wrong framework. The other thing I'd offer is that we've heard a lot of horror stories, and I sympathize with those. I don't want my family to be jeopardized, but horror stories are not data.
Thank you, sir.
You do more to justify a traffic light than you've done for this ordinance.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. I believe it's L.A. Oh, please, go ahead, sir. Your name?
Hello, my name is Antonio Torres III. I'm an alcoholic and recovering addict. 27 years of my life I've spent living like a sociopath, doing anything and everything, robbing everybody I saw. Everybody was a target to feed my addiction. Until I came into a house like, sober living home, I was a dead man. And to take it away and to close these down is giving a death sentence to any other alcoholic and addict out there. You're taking away their chances of recovery. You're taking away all their hope. Please don't do that.
Thank you, sir. Is Susan Dumont here or Linda Ramos? Okay, we'll move on. Doug, I believe it's Conkis. Doug, it's at 5318 South Crenshaw. Doug. Richard Eyre. Kenneth Jameson. Michael Arnold. Brian Gitman. Elisa Arduna. Good afternoon, sir. Your name?
Hi, Richard Chen.
Okay.
It's the first one you named. I'm an attorney from Munger, Tolles & Olson. My firm prepared a memorandum for our client, Inner City Law Center, analyzing legal issues raised by the proposed ordinance. I believe all of your offices have a copy of that memorandum. The single-use requirement violates the federal fair housing laws in two ways. First, its passage is motivated by a discriminatory purpose, namely to limit the housing opportunities of persons with disabilities. Beginning with Councilmember Smith's motion, the council has been focused on targeting sober living homes, and the continued public support for the ordinance here and in prior meetings is clearly rooted in that objective. Second, the single-lease requirement would have a disproportionate impact on persons with disabilities, primarily because they benefit from funding programs that require them to be on individual leases. HACLA and other city agencies have already recognized this disproportionate effect. I want to emphasize that both of these violations can be established irrespective of the facial neutrality of the ordinance. In other words, it is irrelevant that the proposed ordinance does not mention sober living homes specifically. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker. Just give us your name.
Kenneth Jameson.
Okay.
I'm an attorney with Munger, Tolles & Olson, along with Rich, who just spoke. We represent the Inner City Law Center, who strongly opposes this ordinance. Rich just explained how the ordinance would violate fair housing law. In addition, the ordinance would violate tenants' right to privacy under the California Constitution. To enforce the ordinance, the city would have to investigate residents' leasing arrangements, how they organize their chores, how they share household expenses, and how they conduct their maintenance. These investigations would illegally invade residents' right to privacy in their personal affairs. Furthermore, the ordinance would exceed the city's zoning authority. The city must remove constraints to housing for persons with disabilities, but this ordinance would do the opposite. Finally, the ordinance would violate the city's obligation to affirmatively further fair housing. There's no need to pass an ordinance that would put the city in danger of losing federal funding, that will be overturned in court, that will leave the city liable for damages, and wouldn't even solve the problem that it is supposed to address. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Elisa Orduña, and I'm representing the United Way of Greater Los Angeles, and Elise Buick, our president and CEO. We are here today to propose the community care ordinance. We strongly believe that this legislation will not solve the problem against problematic and improperly managed facilities or group home. We also are currently spending in the city of Los Angeles about $2 million in federal CDBG funding for the Proactive Code Enforcement or PACE program. Why not leverage this program and allocate funding that would have gone toward the enforcement of the community care ordinance to PACE so it's fully staffed, responsive, and empowered to address neighborhood concerns? We support Inner City Law Center's proposal for a task force of multiple parties, and the task force could develop a nuisance abatement pilot program in Council District 12 to address improperly managed group and boarding homes, and then scale up for the rest of the city. We too support strong communities and good neighborhoods, but limiting affordable housing options leave people homeless. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, Kurt Baldwin, Gwendolyn D. Tawiska, I believe. Chuck or Chick Hunter. I'm not sure which. Come on up. Kenny Morrison. Any of you here? Come on down. Daniel Garcia. Please come to the microphone. Good afternoon.
Hello, my name is Gwendolyn Tawiska, and I am a veteran of the United States Air Force. I had been homeless for over 3 years, and I had an ongoing substance abuse problem. I currently live at New Directions at the Mitchell House. Programs like New Directions are vital to the community. They help people like myself get back into the mainstream of life. They offer substance abuse programs such as the 12 Steps. We also get the much-needed medical attention. They provide clinicians and counselors to assist us in other areas of our life, like voc rehab, life skills, anger management, and help with our PTSD issues. With the help of New Directions, I have something to look forward to. I no longer exist. I have a purpose in life. If you pass this law, it will be homeless again. I will be homeless again. This law also violates the fair housing law, so I ask you to please reconsider. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Carrie Morrison. Chairman Reyes and the committee, thank you for your patience in listening to all the testimony today. I'm a homeowner in Council District 4. I manage the Hollywood Business Improvement District, and I represent the City of Los Angeles on the Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority. The LAHSA board about 2 months ago voted unanimously to oppose this ordinance because of the impact that it would have, sending us backwards when we are trying to house the 23,000 people that are homeless in Los Angeles. But what is also more troubling is 2 weeks ago I had the occasion to be in Washington, D.C. with the L.A. Chamber and the Home for Good team. We met with the Assistant Secretary in HUD and also with the Interagency Council, Barbara Poppy, who both knew about this ordinance, had seen the LAHSA letter, were gravely concerned about the impact on fair housing and also on setting a negative precedent for other cities across America. I can't think of a better way to spend my afternoon than to be here today to tell you to please do not pass this ordinance.
Thank you, Ms. Morrison. The reason why I'm looking at my watch is not to hurry you or anything like that, but it's unfortunately one of my committee colleagues had to leave to another committee. Councilor Huizar has stepped away from this committee at this moment. So in order for us to engage in a discussion both in closed session and with other departments, what I think we need to do is finish public comment, and then I'm going to continue this item so that I can have a full committee body present in the next meeting, and then we'll take those steps. So I'm still inviting you to speak. I'm not telling you not to speak. Some of you might be waiting for us to have deliberation and have discussion with the department folks. We're going to essentially continue that because I do have one colleague missing, and I think it behooves us to have the three of us present in this discussion before we send it to City Council. So that being said, we're going to continue public comment, and then we will basically conclude the meeting. We'll have general public comment that will conclude. But if some of you are waiting here for the discussion, we're essentially going to continue this item. We don't want to keep you waiting any longer. So that being said, let's keep going. Kurt Baldwin, are you here, Kurt? Kurt Baldwin, Chuck Hunter, Daniel Garcia, Troy Williams, Matt Neely, Cassandra Lewis, I believe. Cassandra Lewis, James Scott. Come on up. If I called your name, come on up and give us your name. And
Good afternoon, Council. My name is Troy Williams. I'm a veteran. I'm a participant and resident in New Directions. I'm a U.S. Army veteran. And to see how this even got here, I don't know what they didn't see in the city attorney's office, but they were wrong. This is discrimination at its finest. For the rights and the protection, for the rights that we protected for these people to put this proposal up here, we fought to protect that. And now you're going to use it against us when we got these people coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan. We got their spouses. We have the female soldiers. We have addicts on the street. But yet we're ready about when they say NIMBY, not in my backyard. How much of your backyard do you want it to be? The way this works is we're all for one. You might think it might be the greater good of your neighborhood or your community, but is it the greater good of mankind? Put your heart in somebody else's place.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon. My name is Cassandra Lewis, and I'm a United States Army veteran, and I'm here on behalf of New Directions Women's House. I came to New Directions a despair, empty woman, and today I have a lot of gratitude for being able to be put in a position with women that are the same as I am. And if you pass this law today, it would be very sad for the women that are out here that have not found their way back to New Directions, because there's a lot of veterans and we've served this country and we need this recovery home. Thank you.
Good afternoon, sir. Give us your name.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is James Scott. I'm a veteran. I served as a U.S. Marine, This is my first time. I've always wanted to be a part of this. I've seen you on TV. So, granted, I wouldn't be here if it weren't for New Directions. New Directions is a shelter for homeless veterans. I've been homeless in and out of prison, the prison system, for the last 25 years because of the substance abuse problems. For the past 22 months, I've been at New Directions, where I've been able to regain my health and my life. Having graduated from New Directions, I'm no longer at New Directions, although I'm very much an advocate of their activities. Incidentally, I'm a registered alcohol and drug practitioner. I currently live in a sober shared housing.
Thank you, sir.
If this proposed ordinance is passed as law, I shall be homeless once again.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. William Craig, Terry Cruz, I believe it's Dal Sakimoto, Casey Campbell, Barbara Schlick, Alejandro Vieira, Sandra, and I believe it's BWH, Sandra, Jennifer Russell, and these folks are here, Dean Nakanishi, Teron Shaw, Amar Terrence Fraser, Chris Espy, E-S-P-E, Esp, Virgil Fogel, Gigi Zabel. Come on up, sir. Give us your name.
Hi, I'm Virgil Fogel. Thank you for this opportunity to speak.
Thank you, sir.
I'm a person in long-term recovery. I'm a registered recovery worker with the California Certification Board of Alcohol and Drug Counselors. I'm here representing Chandler Lodge Foundation that has existed in North Hollywood for over 50 years. We serving 40 beds at a time. We have 40 beds which remain consistently full. We have a great rapport with the North Hollywood Police Department, who considers us an asset to the community. And I implore you not to support this proposed ordinance and allow us to continue to save lives and fill a vital need in our community. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your patience. Next speaker, come on up.
Good evening, Gigi Salbo with New Directions. New Directions has been providing housing and services to homeless veterans for 20 years. If this ordinance passes, 3 of our 5 facilities would be forced to close. 2 of those, the first in the country to open to serve women veterans, have been operating successfully in Mar Vista for 15 years with no complaints from neighbors. The other home is for Iraq-Afghanistan veterans. That's been operating successfully for 4 years with no complaints from neighbors, and the neighbors even bring our veterans cookies. So why would our programs that have been operating successfully with no complaints be forced to close? Clearly, this ordinance does not solve the problem it was intended to solve. It is like trying to kill an ant with a sledgehammer and then missing the ant. Please do not pass this ordinance. You would be creating homelessness for thousands of our nation's veterans. Please don't pass this ordinance.
That was very visual. I'm sorry, folks, we've been here a while. Beverly Kenworthy, Julie Argento, Deborah Burton, Walter Fears, Leslie Walker, Artis Al Polk, and James Porter. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Beverly Kenworthy. The LA Chamber of Commerce, in a joint partnership with the United Way of Greater Los Angeles, created Home for Good, a strategic plan to end chronic and veteran homelessness in Los Angeles. This plan has been widely endorsed by members of the City Council as well as unanimously supported by our county supervisors. The plan is in line with the federal programs to eliminate and end chronic and veteran homelessness, which our plan seeks to do. Besides being the right thing to do, permanent supportive housing is 40% cheaper than allowing a person to live on our streets. This is especially important for our veterans who use the single-family home, group home as an option for their VASH vouchers, which is a Section 8 voucher for our homeless veterans. We are putting these at tremendous risk. When we've been in D.C., I've been there twice in the last 6 months, we're keeping them posted on this ordinance. Home for Good has made huge strides for LA and for getting our fair share of services. If this passes, it's a huge step backwards. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is Doug, I think it's Winsman. Is Doug, you still here? Come on up.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, Committee. Doug Minsman, speaking on behalf of Councilman Dennis Zine. Just wanted to put on record the Councilman's acknowledgement for the need and value of real treatment and supportive housing and living arrangements, but wants to encourage and urge the committee to make sure that there are strong and enforceable protections for single-family neighborhoods in this, when this all finally shakes out. And also wanted to kind of get a commitment perhaps from the Department of City Planning that should the committee decide to parse out the parolee probationer part of this, that it is something that will then be picked up by which we don't necessarily know if that's a good idea or not, but if it happens, that would be picked up quickly on the heels of this final ordinance to make sure that it's something that doesn't kind of get lost in a work program in the department, so we can make sure that this all gets done quickly and efficiently, because we feel that's an incredibly important part of this, and if it is decided to be parsed out, we want to make sure that it happens immediately after.
If you'd like to put that in writing in a letter from the council member, that would help.
Definitely, for sure.
Okay?
Thank you.
All right. I've been through all the cards, but many of you are still there, and I want to make sure I didn't overlook anybody. So once you're coming up and give us your name, and I want to make sure that you're acknowledged and you waited patiently. Give us your name.
My name is David Garfinkel. I did turn in a card about 4 hours ago. Okay. It's easy to lose it in the stack. I'm president of the Tarzana Property Owners Association. We strongly support the ordinance that the city attorney's office put out in conjunction with the planning department, the city planning commission, etc., and your own participation. However, we're concerned. We feel that that was a very fair and balanced treatment, balancing the needs, the legitimate needs of the sober living and other community care peoples with the legitimate needs of householders. However, we're concerned about some of the suggestions in the planning department's recent suggestions, particularly the idea that these boarding houses would be by right public benefits in all zones with no public hearing. Okay. That the parolees would not be included now, and that the
Thank you very much.
definition of lease gets lost in the noise.
Thank you, Mr. Garfield. Thank you. Next.
I am Mark Carmatz. I am coming in opposition to this thing. On May 15th, 1995, the Supreme Court ruled that zoning ordinance provision regulating areas for single-family dwelling units that define family as persons without regard to number related by genetics, adoption, or marriage, or a group of 5 or fewer unrelated persons was not exempt from the Fair Housing Act's provision of discrimination against persons with disabilities. On May 15, 1995, the court ruled that a zoning ordinance provision regulating areas for single-family dwelling units that define family as persons without regard to number related by genetics, adoption, or marriage, or a group of 5 or fewer unrelated persons was not exempt from the Fair Housing Act's prohibition of discrimination against people with disabilities. And you'd also be in violation of the Olmsted decision if you pass this.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you. Our next speaker?
Good evening. I think I'm the last speaker tonight, and I think everybody is summarily asleep. Maria Fisk from Old Granada Hills Residents Group. I'm representing that group. I would like to talk and speak about the person who does not have a voice, the person who's not here, the people who have lived in these illegal group homes, no matter what you call them, parolee homes, sober living homes, group homes, those people who do not have a voice, that have been abused, that have been victimized, that have not received the proper treatment. What about their rights? I'm glad and I'm thrilled that you have had the opportunity to be rehabilitated. But what about the people who haven't? This is why this ordinance is imperative to protect not only the neighborhood, but those people within those residents that don't have a voice. And I'm here to speak for them because I have seen horror stories. Thank you very much. This ordinance must pass. I support the city attorney's provisions in her September recommendations, and I completely reject the planning's report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I believe that's everyone that might have wanted to speak. We try to cover everybody. This is a marathon of sorts, but a very important issue, because it is that important. Right now we will tentatively reschedule this item for April 10th. That seems to be the date that's available given our committee work. So April 10th will be the targeted date. Should it change, we will inform everyone that submitted a card. Would that be accurate? Or do we put it on our website?
Council member, there's the agenda will be posted with a new date if this item is continued past the April 10th meeting, and anyone is welcome to call the city clerk's office. My number is 213-978-1074, or you can email our office. It's on the agenda. My name is Sharon, SHARON.GIN, like gin and tonic, at lacity.org. So please, if the date past April 10th is decided, and our office is aware of it, we will let you know. But at this point, aside from the agenda, there's really no feasible way to contact everybody who submitted a card.
Okay, so April 10th is the targeted date.
Yes.
Okay.
The time is usually at 2:30 unless it is a special meeting, and that is determined by the chair.
We're going to keep for 2:30, believe me, and try to keep this one open so that hopefully we'll have very few items on that day. Okay, so that closes public comment on this item. The next time this comes up, it'll be a discussion between the departments and the committee members. This closes public comment. So that being said, anybody here for public comment? General public comment? Seeing none, this meeting is adjourned.